We're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Delusions of Grandeur. I am one of your hosts, but tonight we are taking a break in our themed month of showing you what kind of films mean something to Jake, while doing films about something. Some films that Jake really likes for his birthday. So, Jake, why don't you tell us what is the first film that we have in store for us?
Okay, I'm thinking about the grammar and whatever. So we are going to continue on. We are going to continue on with Filmmaker February, as I am calling this month, with a look at another very important director who I would say has been modestly influential on me, and I've certainly enjoyed what I've seen of his work, although in fairness, I'm not as well-versed in this guy as I have been with some of the others coming up this month. But regardless, we are watching the 1989 breakout film by Spike Lee. It was his third or fourth feature, depending on how you count. But it was his breakout film that really put him on the map, a little movie called Do the Right Thing. So let's just go around let's start with our IMDb description. On the hottest day of the year, on a street in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, everyone's hate and bigotry smolders and builds until it explodes into violence. Probably one of their better, but still not quite on the mark descriptions. But anyway, point is, it's a hot day. And it's kind of a day in the life movie. You could almost call it a slice of life film that just happens to take place on a hot day. And
at a pizza place.
It gets quite
So,
interesting.
slice of life. Hey-yo.
Oh, there you go. Well, Mo, you do have the resident wisecrackers character up for your icon there, so that makes sense. But how about Mo? We'll let you lead us off. Is this your first time seeing this film, and what are your thoughts on it?
It is my first time seeing it, and I quite enjoyed it for the most part. I really do wish that Martin Lawrence had played Mookie and Spike had just stayed out of it, because the dude is wooden as fuck. But other than that, I really kind of loved everything about it. The way it was like a slice of life day in the life type deal. The whole color palette of the movie is just rad. It's like almost kind of got like this scorching hot sort of Western thing going on at times, but then it's got all the different vivid colors. It reminds me like Cross Colors clothes from back in the day. Amazing soundtrack, amazing performances by most of the cast. And it's one of those movies that really just kind of drops you into the build up to a hectic situation and doesn't necessarily lead you into taking any sides or getting into the weeds where that's concerned. You can kind of just, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but watch the spectacle unfold and sort of figure out what the overall message to it was. So I think he did what he was trying to do with it for sure. I think some of the feedback it got from critics at the time, thinking it was going to cause people to riot in the streets or whatever, where it was a bit ridiculous. And I definitely fully agree with Spike Lee on that. Like, why would it do that? That's not even the direction this movie was going in at all. I don't know. I loved it, man. I'm glad that I finally got around to watching it. I'm definitely a novice when it comes to Spike Lee, and I need to watch a lot more of his stuff. That's about it. Hopefully he gets better at acting as those projects progress. Because Mookie had like mad drip in this movie, but I did not enjoy his performance. But, on the flip side of that, there's not enough of it to really detract from anything else in the movie. Mookie's just kind of like the center cog that the story is told around in a lot of ways. So he's
Right.
kind of a soft-spoken dude that doesn't say a whole lot. So that works out.
In a lot of ways, much like last week's Gosford Park, this is a full-on ensemble film. Like there are
for sure.
definitely people who feature prominently, but it's an ensemble. There's a lot of players, and a lot of them get moments to shine.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could definitely see this movie being like a movie I would throw on frequently just to have on. So that's something else I would say as far as first impressions go. Like I'll definitely be watching it many more times.
Cool. All right, now I'll just move right along the line. Forrest, I don't believe this is your first view of this. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, far from it. I have seen this movie multiple times. I haven't seen everything. I would say I've seen a good portion of Spike Lee's filmography. And yes, that's a picture of me with Spike. I had lunch with him years ago, with me and some of my fellow film classmates. I also once saw him at Yankee. I've also seen him at Yankee Stadium before, at a game. But yeah, I think. But anyway, that's to get back on topic. But yeah, no, I've seen this movie multiple times, along with several of Spike Lee's other movies. Living in New York, he is one of the quintessential New York filmmakers, along with Martin Scorsese, Spike Lee. I mean, Martin Scorsese, Woody Allen, Abel Ferrara, Darren Aronofsky. He's right up there with all those guys. And that New York's not
Lloyd Kaufman.
Lloyd Kaufman, of course, but like got directors who New York's not just the setting of their stories. It's like it's a character in of itself. And
oh yeah.
And I will say right now, like the scene where they were playing with where they're playing with the fire hydrant, like I have done that. That took me back to childhood right there. Like me and my cousin used to do that when we were kids. Like we would go outside and play with a fire hydrant, like a sprinkler, run through it like a sprinkler. But yeah, I think it's. It was like Mo was saying, like the cinematography. Like, yeah, you can definitely tell it's a disgustingly hot, humid day in New York, and you could just see it from the colors. Great ensemble cast from so many different vantage points. Back in the I think it was at the 1990 Academy Awards, Kim Basinger, when she was presenting the nominees for Best Picture, she called out the Academy for not snubbing this movie for Best Picture, which I think it should have got. I think it should have at least gotten. I think it should have gotten nominated and won. And
what won that year? What was the winner?
It was Driving
19. Yeah, Driving Miss Daisy. Yep.
And
that would definitely.
For me.
And
this stage much better than Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah, no, this movie definitely does a much better job at portraying race relations than Driving Miss Daisy ever did. Anyway, I agree. So many great performances from so many actors who would go on to do great things. From Giancarlo Esposito and Bill Nunn to Danny Aiello, John Turturro, Martin Lawrence, Samuel L. Jackson, one of his early roles. It's all it's a movie that definitely I think it holds up very well today. Like the themes of it are still relevant now in 2022, like they were in 1989. And for me, and also, like I said, living in New York, this is a movie that resonates a lot with me because a lot of what these characters, a lot of what you see around the neighborhood, I can go in any any neighborhood in Brooklyn or Queens, and yeah, I see stuff like, and it's true. It's all very real.
Yeah, it feels like, if they weren't wearing such early or late 80s, early 90s style clothes, you could buy this as being set today.
Well,
Like,
so many of those styles are actually
Right.
coming back right now. You got young black men wearing high
Right.
top clothes again.
Yeah.
And honestly, like
everything here is becoming
Jordans will never go out of style.
Neither will Larry Bird.
true enough, man.
Right.
Yeah, but like I said, high top fades are coming back into style, so that's kind of new again.
Although, actually, I will say the one thing that did date the movie was when it was the $1.50 was like $1.50 for pizza for a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some New York places,
now.
they said that pizza slices will always cost what a subway fare costs.
Yeah.
That's what I was told the last time I was in New York City.
No, it's true. It's true. It's true. It's like the Subway. I think is like now it's $2.70. Subway and a slice are both $2.75.
Huh. Okay.
But
So
just
the subway fare hasn't really gone up that much in the last 30 years.
but I will.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
But I will say though, like the fact that they said that Sal was charging $1.50, that to me right there dates the movie.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah,
So there
not
are
much.
those
And
rare
$2
bastions
for
of
extra
affordable
cheese.
slices still.
Yeah, and also another thing I liked about the soundtrack, Public Enemy. I'm actually wearing a Public Enemy T-shirt right now that I got when I saw them in concert years ago. But that was also
Public Enemy rules, man. I mean, that made me smile so big to hear that so prominently featured in this movie. That whole album was a big deal for me.
this movie turned me on to that.
Unfortunately, they were responsible for rap rock, them and Run DMC, but we'll forgive them for that.
Bring the Noise was a classic.
I actually like rap rock.
That chunky riff is chef's kiss.
The only kind of rap I really like, mostly.
We'll also forgive you for that, Carl. It's okay.
I'll forgive you for liking crappy music too.
And you talk about dated outfits. One of the bonus features on the DVD was the music video for Fight the Power. And I'm sorry, some of Flav's outfits are...
Oh,
dude, those are timeless. What are you talking about?
Like that.
I think he still wears the giant clock when they perform.
Yeah,
he better never stop, dude.
He's not changed.
Yeah, he looks exactly the same.
I'm gonna have to admit it. I used to watch Flavor of Love, so
yeah, so did I.
Yeah, I watched Strange Love.
And we'll forgive you for that moment.
Yeah, me too.
I love Flavor Flav.
All right. You good, Forrest? You got it?
Yeah, I think so for now.
Okay. And actually, you set up a good thing I'm just going to go ahead and mention, just because it's an important part of the film, is that this was pretty much all filmed on the Stuyvesant block. There's a couple of, I think they said a couple maybe little bits away from it, but not much. It is all filmed right there on the street. They built Sal's Pizzeria, Sal's famous pizzeria, and actually it was a functioning pizzeria that they built for this film. And they built the storefront for the Korean grocery, but that was a little bit more of a set dressing than a fully functional building. But other than that, they touched things up here and there. They painted some walls. They moved a couple fences, but they basically used the block that was there. And that was a decision both Spike Lee and the director, Ernest Dickerson, director of photography, Ernest Dickerson, were both like, we want this location, and they knew it was going to cost more, but they wanted it. So it was,
what they did to Sal's is, oh my gosh.
What's that?
Sal's alone. They built
I know.
From the ground up.
Yeah.
That's just
so pretty good. And especially because it was apparently only up for less than 6 months. And it's like, not even that, like from beginning to end. And it's like, that's a lot of work for something you're just going to burn down. But, all for realism film, I guess. All right. Dave, let's get your thoughts here.
Well, I'd seen bits and pieces of this, probably because it was a film that was definitely among my peers of watching, but I'd never seen it in its full entirety. Now that I've seen it, wow. it's definitely a pressure cooked situation. Definitely a lot of people in it. Definitely, I love the fact that they had a little bit of some of like all the races that were in here. I mean, I can imagine like this would kind of be like every single corner of like New York at one point in time. And you definitely get different flavors of people, including Flava Flav. But I liked it. I liked it. I loved the atmosphere. The way I feel about Martin Lawrence in this film is the same way I feel about Tony Shalhoub in Men in Black. It's like Demirs, man. But
what you say, Demirs, man?
Yeah, because they both have big ass ears when they were younger.
Oh, okay. Oh, damn ears. Okay. Okay, I couldn't understand what you were saying, so I didn't
You
get
should
the
have
joke.
Flavor
Okay,
Flav
right.
play Mookie. Just dropping yeah boys all over the stage.
I don't know.
Most likely.
Unfortunately, this film also like brings back memories of like not too long ago, especially with the situation that happens later. You know,
I agree. I thought the same thing.
Like the George Floyd incident. I got to mention that. So this movie is very time descending, timeless because it's like it almost like prophesized the future.
Yeah.
Well, it is reflecting the current times, and unfortunately, the current times have not changed.
No, none of that's changed. In the 80s, those neighborhoods were dealing with a lot of that bullshit of the police brutality, of the racism, the fucking gentrifiers moving into, neighborhoods like Brooklyn or Harlem or Queens, and then having the audacity to tell the people who live there, what they can and cannot do.
Yeah, like that neighborhood where they filmed, where it's set has become gentrified.
It's different.
For the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Spike Lee has been a very big outspoken, critic of that because, there was an article a couple of years ago, and Brandon and I were talking about this earlier, about how there was, I want to say it was either Queens or it was Brooklyn, I can't remember where it was, but a bunch of white gentrifiers moved into the neighborhood, to get these nice luxury condos that had been, repurposed or whatever, and they were throwing a fit because a group of old Black and Hispanic men would have like a card game or chess, like a little chess club or whatever, where they would set up a card table on the sidewalk and play games. These are old men.
Yeah.
And they do this all day. So yeah, this is like probably in Brooklyn. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember where it was. It was so long ago that I read the article.
See, that's sad. That's a part of the.
Now, Queens has been very.
Well, what I'm saying is that basically they said that before these people moved in there, the number of 911 calls for noise complaints were like 0. After the white gentrifiers moved in, they threw a fit telling people who had been there for generations what they could and could not do in the neighborhood anymore. Like, I can understand that anger of like, you're in my neighborhood, fuck you. Like when they were yelling at the guy with the bike, I get all of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a we were here first kind of a situation. So
yeah.
That actually adds a little bit more context. I don't know if I think Brandon, I think you have the same set that I do. I don't know how far you got on the bonus features. One of the things they have on disc 2 is like Bedford-Stuyvesant 20 years later or whatever. And it's like Lee and one of the people involved in the production go back to the block where they filmed the movie in 20 years later. So it's like 09 or something. And yeah, it looks different. It's it doesn't look like they completely changed everything up. It does, and they don't explicitly say it's been gentrified, but Lee throughout that segment does not look very happy at all, and he's looking around just kind of. You look at the there's more fences, there's more like gates rather. The building fronts do look cleaner and more polished. So there's definitely a feel that it's been, gussied up a bit, prettied up, made more gentrified. There's definitely a feel of that in watching that video. And in that video, but he looks pissed. And I was kind of wondering, because he doesn't really explain it, but that helps to explain it.
Yeah, but the neighborhood loses its character. I mean, it's one thing with a place like Churchill here in Richmond, where every other house is a fucking crack house. That's one thing. But you look at places like Harlem, where you got folks moving into Harlem and buying $1 million flats, $1 million brownstones and shit. It's like, wait, what the fuck happened here? And the next thing you know, you got fucking Columbia University students going there. Oh my God. I discovered this thing called, it's called the chalk cheese. It's like a Philly cheesesteak. Bitch, shut the fuck up and get your ass back down to Times Square. Get the fuck out of here.
Get your ass back to Jersey.
Get your ass back to the Upper East Side. Get the fuck out of here.
Damn, tell me how you really feel.
Down the street. That's character. To me, that's what makes the neighborhood good. I mean, I would be looking at that like, this is a part of it. This is
someone made a point. What is the difference between these black and Hispanic men playing chess or playing cards or whatever? What's the difference between that and the old Jewish men in the park playing chess? What's the difference?
You're right. Not really a difference.
Got a problem with that, so why do you have a problem with this?
Well, you know what the difference is.
I know, babe. I know shit. I know. Right. I want them to say it.
Right. So, Dave, was that your full?
All I gotta say about those gentlemen sitting around playing cards in front of that freshly painted wall is like, I could see them sitting there with that wall dirty as fuck, but it was damn clean for that area.
They did paint the wall for the film to make it pop more, and to add to the overall heat feeling.
You were saying something, Kroll?
I would say to the guys, "What you playing? Can I join?"
I was looking for the tags in the neighborhood, and I was like, "Damn, I don't see one."
Well, there was one.
All right.
Just kidding.
All right, KJ, is this your first time with this film, and what are your thoughts?
No, this isn't my first time. I would say this might be around my third or fourth time. My mom saw this movie back when it came out, and I was born in the 90s, so I wasn't alive when this film came out, so I saw it on VHS. It didn't really appeal to me then. But when I turned around 17 or 18, I watched this movie. I was like, damn, like, this movie is really... I don't know, this movie's speaking to me. And then you start seeing, like, Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, and, George Floyd recently, these situations happen. It's like, okay, do the right thing kind of said some of this stuff was going to happen, or it kind of, preceded, like David said, it preceded some of those events that took place. And, it's one of those movies I view kind of like what's the word I want to use? I view it like the quintessential Black American film of that time, because that movie to me really made a lot of people possible to come later on down the line in terms of Black directors. Later you get John Singleton, the Hughes brothers, other people. Yep. And this movie just really, I'm telling you, the first scene I remember watching, I was like, wow, was the opening scene with Rosie Perez dancing. Like that scene, I never seen anything like that before. Then you got Public Enemy, Fight the Power. Her dance moves are so like exotic and so raw and so like, the energy was just I don't give a fuck kind of energy. It's like they were doing this in 1989. Like you just don't think that because of some of the movies that you see. Like you gotta say, Driving Miss Daisy was the movie that won Best Picture. It's like Driving Miss Daisy, and then you put Do the Right Thing to Drive Miss Daisy. It's like, what the hell? like that's right. That's how I felt. And then, my favorite scene in the movie is the introduction of Bruh Man, like the whole love and hate on his hands. Because one of my favorite movies is The Night of the Hunter with Robert Mitchum.
Right.
And that reference there, with that scene was like, dang, like, and Spike's not just showing what's going on then, he's also showing some love to the classic one. But no, this movie is a very, very timely film. Like, kind of scary how timely it is, because that's over 30 years ago. We're still dealing with the same problems. I wish more people could watch this movie, but it's a great film. Like, it's a really great film. And I agree with somebody. Spike Lee, I don't know why he cast himself as the lead character.
Yeah, come on, bro.
I think he wanted to kiss Rosie Perez. That has to be what.
I mean, I feel that definitely. I can understand the impulse, but
I agree with you, Mo, on the fact
he
that
saw her
he was
chances,
mostly
I'm
wooden.
doing his part.
I agree with
his outfits were the best, though. I loved the bike shorts under the shorts. Like, that's like an
Jack
old
Robinson
80s look that I still just love. Wish that would come back.
Also, I just wanted to point out that because there was that scene where Mookie and Pino are talking baseball, and Pino says that Roger Clemens was better than Dwight Gooden, and I'm like, oh, come on! No, back in '89, no New Yorker would admit Roger Clemens. No New Yorker would say that Roger Clemens was a better pitcher. I don't buy that.
That's 100% true. That's 100% true. I mean, I 100% agree that Clemens is way better, but it's true that New Yorkers wouldn't admit that.
Back then we wouldn't have.
No, because he's Red Sox.
All right. So, well, you did get some hints of Spike's sports leanings with this one, where like the gentrifying dude is wearing a Celtics jersey, isn't he? If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
Larry Bird. He's wearing a
Larry Bird
shirt.
Yeah. So
Best basketball player of all time. Yep.
So I guess we'll go ahead to you, Brandon. First time with this, and what are your thoughts?
This is my first time with this film. I admit I was not very interested in Spike Lee stuff for a while, because my first exposure to Spike Lee was when I think I was 10 or 11, and I was watching a film, and I don't know which one it was, but it was a drama of some sort. And I'm sorry, a 10-year-old watching a drama, I think there was a romance story in it or something like that. I was bored to tears by it, and I don't know what it was.
I wonder if it was Mo
Probably
Better
was
Blues.
Jungle Fever.
It sounds like Jungle Fever, babe.
And I'm like,
yeah.
and I'm just like, okay, this is probably not something that is a great introduction to Spike Lee when you're 10. So I was kind of turned off for many years until I had seen Black Klansman, which was a spectacular film. And then it follows right up with The Five Bloods, which is another freaking knock it out of the park film. So It got me a lot more curious. So I got a couple of these Criterion holdings, like Do the Right Thing, and I can't think of the other one, but there was another.
I think the only other one they've put out so far is Bamboozled, and they need to get on that and do some of the others.
That one was really good.
So, it's so I was actually very glad to have gotten the opportunity to watch it. I didn't watch the special features because I ended up checking this out yesterday, and I have watched the film now 3 times. Once with the commentary sense, because after watching it the first time, I got a reaction. I was like, okay, this is not the full reaction I need to get from the movie. This is my knee jerk. I need to go back in and examine my thoughts and even my basic prejudices a little bit more. And that's why I had to go back in with that. And then, right beforehand, I was with Kim. I was like, hey, why don't we watch it again? And I did. I really like this movie. I love how it's presented. I love the relationships. I love the characters. I like how the characters aren't perfect. I love how there's no set good guy or bad guy. And I like the ending. I know that's a disagreement with some, but I love how they set up the ending because, and I'll come back into it, they could have done it one way to really show one side being good and one side being bad, but they didn't do that because that's not how life is for the most part. There are some situations where it's like that, but
Right.
I love how they did that. So I am very much in there. And yes, that and of course, Fight the Power, also great song. So can't really disagree on that. So yes, great film, and I did not mind watching it 3 times. So that's a that's a rare thing for me.
Good deal. All right. Well, how about you, Kim? Your thoughts on this one?
I wasn't allowed to see it growing up, and it's really funny that this is the movie that my mom dug her heels in for whatever reason. But when I got to like middle school and stuff, I was allowed to see Crooklyn. I was allowed to see the rest of Spike Lee's movies with no problem. But this was the one that I never ever got to see.
Really?
Or those ice cubes, man.
The ice cube scene. You know your mother.
Yeah.
I don't know if she ever saw the movie. To be honest. I'm serious. I don't think she's ever seen it. So I don't understand why she just was like, nah. I honestly,
Maybe she read those reviews that it would cause riots. I mean, maybe that was it. I don't know.
I just don't think she had an interest in watching it. And then because she didn't have an interest, she just wouldn't let me watch it. I mean, let's be real here. That's how it was in our house. If my mom didn't like it, we were not going to like it either. But yeah, tonight was the first time I saw it, and I already had a base idea of what it was about. But looking at it from a 2022 perspective, I'm like, well, fuck, nothing has changed. This shit is still happening. You still have, these kind of racist people, white people opening up stores in people of color neighborhoods, or the racist ass fucking cops trying to flex their nuts to the brown and black people in the neighborhood. It's like this shit is still fucking happening. When the scene with Radio Raheem happened, like when he gets choked out, spoiler alert, it reminded me of the Eric Garner case.
Spoilers, everybody.
This shit happened in this movie took place in 1989, and Eric Garner died when? And it was like almost exact fucking scene. Like it was like it's like Spike Lee predicted the future. What was Eric Garner killed for? He was selling Lucy's in front of a fucking store. Big fucking deal. But that was enough for him to get an instant death sentence by New York's finest.
Yeah. I don't even think it's an arrestable offense, is it? I think it's just a ticket. But he was big and black, and they decided to rough him up. And
they were like, he's not calming down. He's not calming down. Same thing that happened in the movie. He's not calming down because Raheem would not calm down. And Eric Garner wouldn't calm down. But that doesn't mean you put an illegal chokehold on a person and keep choking them until they stop moving.
Right.
And I felt like I was watching the Eric Garner video all over again.
With the feet moving. Oh.
Yeah. Like he had just picked him up and was just hanging him basically. Like, obviously the imagery of that, we all know what the imagery of that is. It was a modern day lynching.
Yeah.
So I did not think that this movie was going to affect me as much as it did. I knew what it was about, but to see that scene, it was. I don't think I felt like that since I saw the George Floyd murder happen in real time, basically. Right. And it pissed me off because it's like, in just moments before, I'm like yelling at the screen, like, y'all get the fuck out of the damn restaurant. Stop fighting. And then when the cops show up, they escalate shit, as they always do. And then it's like I went from being mad at the guys for busting up the store and acting stupid to now being upset that they're being arrested and killed and shit.
Yeah. If they hadn't shown up, I feel like various people in the crowd would have eventually broken it up. And Sal probably would have fed them all pizza or something,
No, Sal was getting choked to death. So
yeah, that's what people were intervening.
Sal would have been dead.
Because even that group of
that
group of 4 people that came in for slices, at first they were on Sal's side, but when he said the hard R, they were like, "Wait the fuck, hold the fuck, son, who are you calling up?"
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, you
what
have
I'm
Martin Lawrence's group of kids over there in the corner. Yeah, that was what turned the tide on them, definitely.
Yeah, they were on South
They
Side. But you
overreacted.
like, wait a minute, son. What you doing saying that word?
Right.
I think it would have been worse either way, because after South what he did, I just don't think there was no breaking that up. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
No one had been
like,
killed by the
was-
point though that
Right,
the cops
right.
showed up.
Raheem
Like-
was out of control, and Dum Dum with the put some pictures on the wall. Shut the fuck up. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Bugging out.
Like,
Right?
he
Yeah.
started all that shit.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way then. Maybe if they had just arrested those dudes and not killed anyone and then left, it probably would have de-escalated, and they'd
That's what it
probably all
should've-
been
that's what
eating
should've
late night
happened.
slices and hanging out. But someone got killed,
It's-
and
It's just like if it had ended.
It's hard.
with
It's hard to
Raheem
say
killing
that.
Sal and then them
It's
walking
hard to
away.
say that for
It would have been
sure.
different too.
It's hard to say that for sure because I think part of the I know part of the point of this was an exploration of how heat affects people who are already under pressure.
oh yeah,
and also the fact that there were still like most of the people there probably would have calmed down quickly, but I don't think Pino would have. We probably would have seen him turn on
probably
someone
not.
next.
He was one of the
Yeah,
people that was
yeah.
properly
Yeah.
like a vile racist.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there were some
Yeah.
people that it's hard to say how it really would have gone under certain. Of course, when we get to that scene, we'll talk about how this may have led to this.
That
and
heat
whatever.
wave shit, though, does
Yeah.
it deserves to be pointed out. This is one of several movies that take place during like the legendary heat waves in New York, where crazy shit happens. It is always a
Right.
great backdrop to like a
Mhm.
pressure cooker type movie, as Dave described it, because you can just everyone's been that hot where you're just mad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been like that before.
Yeah, but I do have to say this though. As for the people that are involved in that whole block area, every one of them has a bit of racism in them, and you can see that.
Yeah, it's more of a situation of, like everybody has their different prejudices when they're all crammed together into a place
Right.
like that. But most of them aren't outright like hateful racists. There
Yeah.
are a couple of people
not,
in the movie. that-
Yeah, there's a difference between like a prejudice that you have that's it colors the way you look at people and interact with them, and then like a full on racist like that you really dictates how you behave and just don't behave might not be the right word. Yeah.
They do a good job, I
but
think, of depicting
yeah.
that in this movie and
Yeah.
kind of showing too that, I mean, it's easy to forget that Italians, especially back in these days, weren't just other
Yeah.
white people. They were kind of
Right.
still like looked at as a minority in their own way too. They
Right.
just came up
Well,
through
They
various
were a minority
dealings and
amongst
things.
white people, but
Yeah.
Italians in New
So
York
it's-
were and still are very fucking racist.
Oh
think-
yeah.
And there-
for sure.
and-
The idea
For
was
sure.
So the reason why they made the fight between the Italian American group and the people there, instead of a white guy being the obvious
Oh, the
culprit, there,
gentrifier,
is
yeah.
because he had said what group of two would likely go at it, and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's
what
in
is
like
so
every
hot
mob
with
movie.
the Italian American
like-
group
Well,
that it would be that back and forth to that.
And there was also a big event that happened not long before this, the Howard Beach incident that I think was between the Italian and
Yeah,
the
Howard
blacks.
Beach is a very racist
And
neighborhood.
that was one of the things that Spike Lee cited as part of his decision to use a pizzeria as part of the film, and what have you there.
Yeah, Sal would
but-
definitely be like a massive exception to the rule as far as
Right.
like hard-assed Italian dudes in the city probably go.
Right.
My overall point though was that they did a good job
Yeah.
of like showing that they don't necessarily get preferential treatment in an extreme way from the cops, because they're basically just
Right.
ignore that dude at the beginning, So these are all just sort of for people that
Yeah, they did.
the dudes in blue suits would rather not just be there at all, But
Right.
it's
They don't
you
want
know,
to
they
deal
get-
with any of them.
Exactly.
And-
So it makes it's a good setup to get across all those different prejudices that the people have between each other without,
Right.
like you said, painting out a clear-cut villain of the
That's what I thought
situation.
Right.
in the beginning. The cops didn't seem like they were prejudiced against the black people, because they just basically didn't, pay any attention to the Italian guy who was complaining about his car.
Yeah, I think they just thought
he-
all these
Right.
people are shit.
He,
You know?
he did
Like,
well.
that's
Well,
kind
to
of
me, it just
the-
seemed like he was taking their side. Like that's the way it seemed like to me. Like with that scene. But of course, when you get the end scene, you're like, wow, that motherfucker. The motherfucker really is just racist against,
Right.
all.
Why don't we,
So yeah, let's
let's get back to
go.
finishing first impressions.
Yeah.
Did you have any more, Kim, on your first impression?
No, I was just gonna say that basically I like the movie very much. I can see now why and how he was able to build his career off of this film, because it is a very significant film and it's still significant to this very day.
Right. Very good. How about you, Kroll? What are your thoughts?
Okay. Well, I didn't grow up in New York. I'm from Massachusetts, obviously. But it reminded me a lot of the neighborhoods I grew up in. A lot like it. Especially, seeing a guy wearing a Larry Bird T-shirt. I definitely saw that a lot. Being from Massachusetts, it was great seeing it in the film. I love that scene. Just seeing that shirt and New Yorker wearing it.
I just
was,
assumed
especially
people
cool.
came out of the womb that way in Boston back then.
Well, they do, but this was in New York, so that was unheard of. Like what has been said, and talking about Roger Clemens is also unheard of if you're from New York, because New York and Boston just have a huge rivalry for everything, and New Yorkers hate Massachusetts hate New York, as they say. Obviously, we don't really hate each other. At least I don't. Quite a few friends from New York, but anyways, as far as the film, it's first time seeing it. There is an interesting note that this is the first time you see Martin Lawrence in a movie, so it's his movie debut, and Rosie Perez. It's both their debuts.
Right. Yep.
So no one had mentioned that before, so I figured I'd mention it. And I gotta say, Rosie Perez, I've seen her in a lot of movies. I've never seen her chest. I'm really impressed. I really enjoyed it.
It added a solid star to this,
Yeah, definitely. Her chest was definitely a great. Whole scene was really cool. Really
circumstances around it, could have been better, but
Yeah.
Yeah, because it almost seemed like he was setting her up to just walk out entirely, and I could see him doing that, where he would just get her all down to the stitches and then be like, okay, I got to go back to work, baby.
I think
No,
we might have been talking
she
about
said
the
nothing
behind the
was gonna
scenes, but
happen.
we'll talk about that later. Anyway.
She said nothing was going to
Ain't-
happen, and he wanted to do something, sexual, but not actual sex, because she said no. So he respected
Last time
that.
they had a
but
kid.
He did
Right.
right. He cooled
Yeah,
her off. And
last
I
time-
thought that was really neat. I do agree on the acting. Spike Lee should have picked somebody else, because he was pretty good. He really was. I didn't really feel too much for the character, except for outrage at the end when I thought, I was thinking he started the whole thing, until Mo was mentioned, maybe why he started the whole thing wasn't what I was thinking. So, but anyways, he pretty much, I didn't really like him or not like him. He just was so wooden that I didn't really have too much feeling for him.
Right.
I wanted to like him, but, also, the big radio. I know people who used to walk around with big radios like that. I walked around with a radio.
They still
But it was
do.
a lot smaller. It was a lot smaller. But
I've always wanted a
it
ghetto
was-
blaster, and I really need to get one for the gas
I mean,
station,
I-
because we have.
I don't call it a radio. I call it a boombox.
I mean, boombox.
It's
Boomboxes aren't really.
boombox.
I still see guys blasting their music on the subway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boombox
It was
definitely
definitely not
called
just
the
the radio
80s.
because he was playing that same song over and over.
Right.
And that's
Right.
when
It was a tape.
that's
Yeah.
when you wait for somebody
Yeah, okay.
who looks like Spock to walk up to them and do the Vulcan pinch on them. And that's what you need in there.
Yeah, the
Alright.
boombox is what they called it in the 80s. And like I said, everybody has. So the guy who played the music was really rude and shit. I knew people like that. You know, that was
Right.
that was you know, that was something you see, and the other punk who kept yelling about the pitches and everything, like you know, when his shoes got accidentally scoffed up a little. I know people like that they were like they would kill someone
Jordans aren't cheap.
because they would rather kill you if you fuck with their shoes. Like they are that ignorant that like to be nothing compared to their shoes. Like
my dad tells me about how back in the early '80s he used to work with a black guy who wore these expensive high tops, and he owned expensive high tops, and he would wear garbage bags on his feet so they wouldn't get dirty at work.
That's fucking
Right.
classic. Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I enjoy sneakers, so I can understand the impulse. Like, I might punch someone if they just, you know,
Those
like
are expensive
inconsiderately
shoes.
stomped on my Jordans. Yeah, I'm probably gonna be mad and be like, dude, at least like say sorry. You just fucked up my sneakers, man. You know.
Right.
And if they lift off and
Okay.
like we're a dick, then I might smack them one. But
you know, I think the guy who did it, it was an accident. He didn't realize it, and you know, after he should definitely apologize, and that should have been the end of it. You know, but they were all like, "Oh, kick his ass, take his bike, blah blah blah." Like I know a lot of people like that too, who keep you know, making it worse than it already is, and trying to make it. You know, I thought he was gonna hit him or try to take his bike or something. I was surprised that they didn't do that.
No, he wasn't going to do that.
The people that I knew
Right.
the people that I knew, that's what they would have done. You know,
Hmm.
they would beat him up and taking his bike and stuff. So I'm glad they didn't
$108
show that.
plus tax, man.
But
Make with that.
but I like the guy. You know, he had a Larry Bird shirt, so you know.
All right.
But like I said, I think it was an accident. I don't think he did it on
All right.
purpose. You know.
All
But,
right.
yeah, it's pretty much my first impression, I guess. I mean,
Cool.
well, I like to say, you know, I really enjoyed the movie, and then the end was just like, what the fuck? It just went from decent movie, not too bad things happened, you know, to like overboil, like, you know, boiling point. You know, it was just blown up. It was like, holy shit, all this shit has happened in like the last 5 minutes or whatever it was. But you know, it just so happened so fast. It didn't really seem like it built up that bad. You know, it just kind of a little bit here and there, the normal stuff that, you know, I'm used to, you know, and then to boom, you know, to what happened. So it was really crazy. But yeah.
All right. Very good. And then, of course, back to me and my thoughts on the film and why I picked it and so forth. This is one that I actually saw for the first time, I want to say toward the end of my college time. I might have seen it a year or two later, like the early aughts. I could not say with certainty when. And it was when I was going through my phase where I was trying really, really, really hard to be the critical, like I was actually entertaining the idea of being a critic, you know, and I was still thinking I might actually be able to get into movies and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean, like it. And so I was trying to learn everything I could. And this Spike Lee guy, you kept seeing his name over and over and over and over again. And it was like, okay, I got to learn a little bit about this stuff. And of course, this is the movie that's always been kind of put forward as the one you got to see. I can't swear to it that it's the first one I ended up seeing. There were at least two others that I stumbled across during that time, one of which was a current release, one of the few he's done with a mostly white cast, which was 25th Hour. I actually really liked that movie a lot. And Clockers, which I wasn't as big a fan of, but it was still interesting.
Oh, I love Clockers.
It's been so long. I need to see it again. I want to say that was a one with Turturro in it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I think Martin Scorsese produced it.
Oh, very good. Scorsese was another one I was a little late coming to it. I need to, but this was one that again, it was one of the first ones I saw, and I've seen several of his more recent ones, Chirac and as Brandon said, Black Klansman 20, Defy Bloods. I think I've seen a couple others. I really still need to work on this. I really do. There's a lot of them I want to see.
Some,
I
recommend Summer. I would say I recommend Summer of Sam.
That was one I had no interest in when it came out, but my interests have changed a lot since then, and now I'm a lot more curious about that kind of movie than you know what I mean.
Actually, no, I remember when I was a kid, my mom took me and a friend to the movies, and there was a trailer for it, and my friend's like, "Oh man, that looks awesome! I want to see that." And my mom's like, "Are you kidding? I lived through that. Hell no."
And I want to see some of the earlier ones too. Like, it's worth noting with this cast, this was his second time working with Samuel L. Jackson, his second time working with Giancarlo Esposito, his, I think, second or third time with Ossie Davis. His, early on, he worked with a lot of the same people over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'd say John Turturro was one of his regulars.
John Turturro, this was his first film with Turturro. And this was, I think, the second one with Bill Nunn. And as I think Kroll mentioned, the first movie ever for Rosie Perez and Martin Lawrence. Supposedly, his previous film starred Lawrence Fishburne, and he wanted Lawrence Fishburne, but Lawrence Fishburne said, "I want a starring role." And so he missed out on this movie because of that. At least that's the way Spike Lee told it. And he really wanted Robert De Niro for the part that Danny Aiello got, and eventually
De Niro said no.
But he said no, partly for scheduling and partly because he felt like he'd played like that before.
I just feel like that would have sucked. Danny Aiello rocks. So.
He is great in the role, and that is one thing I will say. Probably one of my earliest impressions of the film is that Aiello really knocks it out of the park. He does a brilliant performance, and a lot of the performances are really great, and some of them were shifted around. The part that Giancarlo Esposito plays was, I think, originally going to be Bill Nunn, I think, and then I think Esposito was I can't remember the full, but like basically Bill Nunn, Esposito, and Jackson all ended up in roles that the other one was going to play originally. And I watched this, I'm like, how could anyone but Sam Jackson play that DJ? I mean,
right? Like, excellent.
You know?
One of my favorite DJs.
Right. It's almost like he was born for that kind of role, and he does have one of the
he always does.
He does have one of the most distinctive voices in movies. I mean, it makes sense. But at any rate, so it was really cool seeing all these people early in their careers, or in the case of Ossie Davis, kind of, I guess, more middle of his career. So it was really fun seeing that. And this was one I did not see again. It's hard to say. I feel like this was my third time watching it, but I cannot for the life of me remember when the second one would have been. So maybe it was a second, but I did watch the commentary, which means a third or fourth viewing. It's definitely one that I think letting it marinate for a while was really good, because I think it is a movie that's good to watch periodically over time. You probably will bring new things to it each time, especially because it really does feel painfully relevant today. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, choosing this one to go with Ride with the Devil was not accidental. I very much wanted to I very much wanted to have those two films tonight. Although this was a last-minute change, I was originally going to do a Pedro Almodovar film instead. So, but I thought this would be a better pairing with Ride with the Devil. So, at any rate, I
would say Spike
yeah, and they know each other, and they've, I think, worked together a couple of times. So they that was really kind of an amusing accident that I came up with. So that I thought that was kind of fun. And again, this is just the first half of the month is movies that either I saw in college or right after that kind of were very important for me getting on this movie loving track that I'm on now. The second half of the month is going to be more recent films. So that was an accidental split that I was really happy to find out about when I realized it. So, but at any rate, this one is another one. Like I said, this is another ensemble film. And I would argue that in a sense, just like Gosford Park, this is a character-driven movie with relatively little plot to speak of, but there is plot, there are through lines, but it is largely just scenes in a day but it's slowly building to the big thing at the end, basically.
Well, the difference between this and Gosford Park is the fact that the characters drive the story more so than in Gosford Park. And I say that as someone who loved Gosford Park. I really love that movie, but I'm more invested in these characters, you know?
That's actually very true, because in Gosford Park, what plot there is happens almost in spite of the characters, and and here it's more because. So yeah, you're right.
And the movie is much more vibrant, so it feels like less of a slow burn. If this was set in fucking England or something, you know, with a bunch of people wearing ascots, it would probably feel like it crawled at a snail's pace too, but it doesn't, you know. And we got that Public Enemy punctuating different parts of it, and it's, you know, it keeps you awake.
And Spike Lee makes the point repeatedly in interviews and on the commentary and whatever that he really wanted just a really not rock and like he in his production notes he seems to love the word vicious, so he apparently used that a lot in his production notes, but that was one that he used for this song. But he wanted a really powerful song, but also one that you just really wanted to hear, because as he says, like, you hear it so much that it needs to be a song that people want to hear. and they achieved that, I think. So that's a good thing. And good on Public Enemy for coming up with it. You know? So, it was their second try. They Spike Lee went with them with some notes and a demo, and Chuck D came back, and Spike listened to it, and he's like, no. And apparently Chuck D's like, well, what do you want? And he's like, I don't know, but that's not it. And then the second song they came back, he's like, yes. So
it was a good choice.
But
it was definitely a good choice.
Right. So at any rate,
reminded me of the time period and of you know, just of people playing it. You know, I mean, it didn't matter what color you were, everybody was playing that song. You know. Where I grew up, anyways.
Chuck's dropping some hard facts in Fight the Power. If you really listen to the lyrics, it's powerful stuff still.
Yeah, it's a damn good song. I really enjoy it. I mean, I wasn't a huge Public Enemy fan itself, but I definitely enjoyed that song. And there's definitely a few others I like to point out.
Right. So I think I probably do want to start off, I think, by basically doing an introduction to the characters, and we can maybe move the plot a little bit as we need to through that. But basically, you've got Spike Lee, as we've mentioned, plays Mookie, who's a young, shiftless, delivers pizza and takes his sweet ass time doing it, and just, you know, he's just kind of there.
And his deliveries take 90 minutes, like a block down the road.
And then he's got his sister Jade, who he lives with, who's played by his sister Jwa Lee, and this is one of her several credits that she did with him.
Beautiful woman too. I think Rosie Perez kind of steals most people's attention, but I was digging his sister. So
okay, I wanted to ask y'all this. this first scene where he goes to wake up his sister,
Uh-huh.
didn't that feel a little bit creepy? I
Yeah.
thought that
Tiny bit.
A little bit.
And later when he gets upset with Sal about how he like acts towards her, that was a little creepy too.
Well,
That was
Creepy. Like
that was more.
your eyes are so big. It's like, what the fuck?
actually both of those things are
Yeah.
I think in that with that scene, and they did a brilliant move where they did the pan shot from Mook over to Pino, and they both have this same look. And it's more like they're more kind of pissed off at the inappropriateness of the whole thing. And also, I get, and Pino, of course, is racist as hell, so that's part of his thing. But I think Mook is. He probably wouldn't much care for his sister going for someone Italian. It's more of a protective
but it
thing.
comes off as more of okay, I like my sister more than my sister kind of a vibe. So
they
accidentally,
I
think, but
maybe that first scene.
I think
definitely.
it's more that because he's a much older Italian guy. Like he just,
and I think from Sal's
too.
I think he just cared that he was like old enough to be your father, and I think that's how Danny Aiello's character was acting towards him, more like an uncle or a father figure. I don't think he was.
Right.
I don't think
he intended it the way that they thought that he was intending.
Mookie made it seem like he was hitting on her, and he didn't want that because
I think
older.
he might have.
I don't think it was because he was Italian.
I think he might have been hitting on her. I don't know if she really saw it that way.
I didn't see it that way at all.
He seemed pretty genuinely offended when Mookie brought it up. Like,
he did.
Right.
He did. And even right after they had that little tussle, he told Mookie that he'd always have a place there in the shop. So obviously.
If he only just said something to Sal, then I would probably leave it as such. But he took it outside to his sister and said, "I don't want you coming here no more."
Yeah, that got a little over possessive there. Right?
Prejudices coming out of it.
Yeah,
totally. So speaking of the Italians, we've got Sal, played by Danny Aiello, and his two sons. The older one, Pino, is played by John Turturro, and the younger one, Vito, is played by Richard Edson. And from watching
a lot of movies.
Apparently, from reading the production notes, Edson was one of the first people cast. Apparently, Spike Lee just really saw him as being one of the people in that family. And he's the nice one. Vito he's bullied by his brother. He doesn't share his prejudices, or at least not that we can tell.
Well, I mean, he's best friends with. He looks like he's best friends with Mookie. So
he genuinely wants to be friends with Mookie, I think, and Mookie, I think, likes him. I think they get along genuinely well.
Yeah, that's why he told me he needs to kick his brother's ass.
I think he's the only one that he actually stands up for in the movie. Everyone else, he's kind of neutral and just like, let's not get stupid. But with that dude, he actually stands up for him and gives him advice on how to deal with his brother and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So he actually likes him.
Like, Pino's an asshole to everyone, and he's racist, but he bullies his own fucking brother. Like, that's shit.
Yeah, Pino's just an ass. Pino's an ass, and you get that in the early scene. And actually, one of the things on the bonus features was an interview with Ruth Carter, the costume designer, and she's talking about the family as they pull up to the restaurant, and Danny's got that styling Hawaiian shirt that Mo pointed out earlier.
I love
it. And then she points out that he changes into his work clothes once he gets there. But it's not so much that he does that. It's just a utilitarian thing for him. But she says Pino comes decked out, like with that really nice, kind of almost mobster getup, and then changes to a much more dressed down once he gets in there. But her way of looking at it was that was an act of defiance on his part, where he would change when he got to work because he wanted to show up looking like someone who wasn't from the neighborhood. And then Vito just shows up in his work clothes. So it's like, it's kind of
chill. Pino's like, I hate this place like a disease,
Yes,
like right from the beginning, this dude's a sack of shit.
I mean, well, Pino, like,
he's like, this is my place.
Are we muted?
No, go ahead.
No, you're on.
I said Pino's assholishness was evident by the fact that he was going off on Smiley. Like, it's obvious Smiley is mentally disabled.
Yeah.
Like, why are you cussing at him? Like, every fucking day, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, what the hell, dude?
It took a while to get Smiley riled. There,
Yeah.
but he did it. He pushed him until that.
But see, what pissed me off was in that scene, though, is Sal. Even though that, Sal is clearly not a bad guy, at least before the hard R scene.
Right.
Even though Sal, like, I got to feel like he's not a bad guy. He enabled Pino's freaking behavior. He didn't call him out. He didn't say shit until
that's part of that.
He called him out a couple of times, but he didn't. He didn't come down.
Let him get to the point where I gotta step in now.
Some parents.
He didn't enforce it very hard.
They let that one.
He's caught up in the whole Italian legacy, taking over the family business thing, So he's like maybe playing with kid gloves with Pino a little bit when he probably shouldn't be, And that's definitely one of his failings as a father and a person,
And I was a parent that does that. They'll let their child get away with stuff that they would not let anybody else get away with.
Right.
To the point where you wonder, okay, no, you need to step in there.
Yeah.
You need to tell them no.
But that's the thing about Sal. I think Sal is still your regular Italian male. I mean, no, I don't think that he's maybe as prejudiced as Pino or not, but you definitely can tell that he has his own differences as well. It's just he's not vocal as Pino.
Well, he's very proud of his heritage, as you know, by the Wall of Fame, which of course ends up and he doesn't back down from that, and he definitely and I think the three of them are really fun and interesting in terms of what we were talking before about how the film has a fairly balanced view, or tries to at least. Like Sal is kind of in the middle. He's a serious guy who's really trying to run a serious business, but he's proud. He is proud of the way the neighborhood is very fond of what he does. He provides a service, and he is proud of this. And they have a
25-year relationship. I mean, like he says, he's watched all these kids on the street grow old, and he's watched the old people get even older. I mean, I don't know that I would say Sal is necessarily racist or even, like normally prejudiced in his day-to-day life. I think the way that they portray him finally snapping and saying some fucked up shit during that last exchange, I mean, it's at the end of this hot boilermaker of a day when the stress of this thing has been rising. They already had this first encounter in the movie. And unfortunately, he slips into a bit of the Italian stereotype and throws some racist shit back at them. But they're all saying racist shit to each other during that exchange.
Exactly.
So it's.
I don't think that makes him a bad guy. He just said some shit when he was upset.
Yeah, Sal, he slipped up. He dropped the N-bomb, but I don't think he meant it in the same way that anybody else in the movie
I don't think he's prejudiced at all.
And I think by the end of the movie, he knows he's wrong by the end of the movie.
There's even that pause afterwards where he has to compose himself before he can even say, like, I killed your music. Like, I think he knew he fucked up. And then he, to his credit, when they're all ready to do whatever they're going to do, tear him apart or wreck the business, he thinks about it, and then he's just like, you do what you got to do, because he understands at that point that this is kind of to that stage, So Sal, I really like him and the Mayor were my favorite characters of the movie, other than of course Sweet Dick Willie.
Me too.
And like I said, but he's kind of in the middle, and then his two sons kind of are the polar opposites. There are someone said earlier there are no villains in the film. Pino comes
Pino
close.
is one. Him and
He
Bugging
comes-
Out are kind of like the
Well,
quote-unquote villain.
Bugging Out's debatable.
Bugging Out.
We'll get to him in a minute. But my point is, Pino and the cops who take things too far are really one end of the spectrum. Pino being maybe one hair closer because he's more developed during the course of the film. And Vito's on the other end, like he's more on the end where the mayor is, where the mayor is the peacemaker. He's the one that, and kind of like Vito, the mayor is not taken seriously by most people. But he's a good one to go to next. We got the mayor and his counterpart, mother sister. They're kind of the elder guard, I guess you could say, for the neighborhood. And
another beautiful woman too for her age, man.
Oh yeah, Ruby Dee.
I'd have brought her those
Right.
roses too.
Actually, Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis, of course, a married couple, old friends of Billy, Spike's father, apparently. And this was his first film with Ruby Dee and his second or third, I can't remember which, with Ossie Davis. And so the mayor is this old drunk man who is very kind-hearted and very he's usually got a smile on his face. You can't tell how much of that is inebriation, but still, he's always going around doing favors for small change. He is always dressed in a suit, and it's beat all to hell and needs a wash, but he's always dressed up in a suit, even on this hot day. And he goes around calling people doctor and generally trying to dispense wisdom. And of course, when you hear "do the right thing," that's his line he says early to Mookie. And he calls him over. He's, "Doctor, come over here. I got something for you." And Mook comes over and he's like, "Do the right thing.
No matter what."
Yeah.
That's all you got for me? That's all.
That's what you got. That's what I got for you. And then, of course, mother sister is much more snarky, much more cynical. She's sort of this neighborhood's version of Maggie Smith.
She's an old soup lady.
She is the old,
She's noses in
there doing exactly. She's always paying attention, always ready with a kind word for some people and a nasty word for the mayor. And for
she
some of the
didn't like
others.
the mayor first because she reminded him of her two least favorite people, her tenant and her ex-husband.
Yes. And you of course you eventually learn a little more about each of them, and at the end of the movie they have kind of a nice little scene. And I think overall they work really well together, and with everyone else that and they're both and they're both very gifted. I love Ossie Davis. Every time I see him in a movie, I'm always have high hopes for.
Absolutely.
Those two and Danny Aiello are kind of the heart of the movie in a lot of the ways.
Right.
Aiello is definitely
Mm-hmm. And then you got, I guess we'll go ahead and hit the corner boys, I guess you could say. ML, Coconut Sid, and Sweet. No, the old dudes. You got ML played by Paul Benjamin. Yeah, Robin Harris playing Sweet Dick Willie, and Frankie Faison as Coconut Sid.
I was waiting all night to hear you say Sweet Dick Willie, Jake, and it was worth it.
Robin Harris was barely in that movie.
What's that?
Robin Harris was barely in his mid-30s when he died.
I know. He was in this one, and I think he was in
he wasn't an
House
old
Party.
dude. Yeah,
well, I think he
looked old.
I think he did the next Spike Lee, Mo Better Blues. I think he has a credit for that. But then, he was dead, I think, before that film came out.
That's crazy. He looked old. He just looked old.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's not that old. Yeah, mid-30s.
He was really young when he passed. I remember that.
Yeah.
So
they were
old enough to be old enough to be kid's brother, not his father.
Yeah.
So basically, you got Paul Benjamin looks like the older one of the group, and he's kind of the meditative one, the one that does the most, I guess, complaining. And then Coconut Sid is kind of like the middle of the like he's on the far right, but like the middle temperament wise. And then Robin Harris, Sweet Dick Willie is he's the one just cracking up. He's just having a good old time, always poking fun at everyone. And
Actually, you know who
Yes.
they reminded me of? They reminded me when I was watching Cowboy Bebop. They reminded me of those old
Yes.
that group of old.
And it would not surprise me in the least. In fact, I think there's very likely that Shinichiro Watanabe was paying homage to this film with those three. I think that's very
It wouldn't
likely.
surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, they kind of reminded me a bit too of like the hood version of like the critics from the Muppet Show. And
Yes.
I thought that was great. They dropped some surprising wisdom throughout that though too, where they're talking about how, because there's the one point where they're talking about the Koreans moving in and doing their thing, and the one dude makes the observation that it's either that the Koreans are geniuses or we're all very stupid, and they start talking about opening their own business. Yeah, well, right, but you know what I mean, like they talk about opening their own business in the neighborhood or whatever. And it's kind of both true. There's a whole deep web of shit that goes on with a lot of those Asian businesses in town being able to open through like loan centers. I think they call them tongs or something like that, depending on the culture. And I mean, they do have it figured out how to move here and like open lucrative businesses in these neighborhoods, and it's a shame that the same doesn't exist for African American folks, like some type of.
Kim, you were talking about that too. Like, it was a lot easier for the Koreans to open up that shop than it would have been for any of them to open up the shops.
Oh yeah, because they have their own loan system in place. They don't even have to rely on like us here most of the time. I watched a whole mini doc on it once, where like if you're like coming in and opening a Chinese restaurant or something in a neighborhood, they have these things called tongs, where it's like the Chinese people themselves that were already here before have like saved up these funds to give them a loan basically to open these businesses.
And not to
go ahead.
Not to mention the fact that in quite a few neighborhoods, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is one, the long-standing practices of racial profiling when loans are involved probably would have not disadvantaged them as much as they would the
maybe not, but they don't even need it because they've subverted it, is my point. Like, and it sucks that something like that can't exist for Black people in the same way,
I'll give you an example. Like here in our area in Petersburg is a predominantly Black city. It's much easier for white people or Asians to open up businesses there. And it's not just about getting business loans or having the money to do so. It's about the fact that the people who own those buildings, who are predominantly white, who own the properties and stuff, they are more likely to lease or rent the space to a white person or an Asian person simply because they trust them more.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. That's fucked up.
They have a problem. And I'm saying, like, this is something that we see happening in real time still in this city. Is that they have a problem for some reason with the Black business owner. People are like, well, if Black people are so upset about not having their own businesses, then do it. It's like, yeah, they have been trying.
Right. No, I feel that. I mean,
they have been trying, and no one will give them a chance. And the ones who do,
that's fucked up.
Open the businesses, like I have a stylist that still has her business in Petersburg. She keeps getting her rent raised for no fucking reason. They're basically trying to price her out so they can move someone in there that they would prefer.
That's what I'm saying,
and then,
man. I mean,
then I'll bet they probably say, well, you're unreliable. And it's like, well, of course I'm unreliable. You keep raising the rent.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to get to a point where she's going to have to leave because no matter how successful her business is, and her business is very successful, it's going to get to a point where the white people that own that block of buildings that she's in, along with other Black-owned businesses, it's going to get to a point where they're going to get priced out of the neighborhood, which is what these people want. They're trying to gentrify the hell out of this one little spot.
Yeah. Oh, there's multiple layers to it for sure. My point was that it just is unfortunate that something like that can't exist for Black folks, so that they can, totally subvert this whole system of having to get approved for these loans by these fucking crackers or whatever, and just go get one from their own people and be able to move into a spot that they've already bought, and
that's a part of the systemic racism. Just in the
thank you.
Yep.
That's what when people say systemic racism, these are the type of things that they mean.
And they touch on that a few times in the movie, and Spike Lee, I think, does a good job of dropping this here and there without really harping on it. Like another part that he says later is when Sal talks about he couldn't get insurance because of the neighborhood, and that's probably that's definitely another thing that's common.
AC man won't even come look at it without a police escort or something. Like that,
Yeah. Although it did also give us a good opportunity for humor with the three guys with the ones talking wistfully about what he would do and all this kind of stuff. And then I think probably my favorite line that Willie had was, "Fool, you 30 cents away from having a quarter." I just thought that was pretty funny.
And I think another thing that Spike Lee kept trying to say during this, and I remember him saying in the commentary, is he also puts out like it's one thing, yes, there's something against it, but he also speaks out against people who don't even bother to try. I think that's also something that you things are against us, but you're not even trying to do it.
There's a calculated hand with how he's dealing with everything in this movie. I think Do the Right Thing is a great example of what, people, for lack of a better term, would call a woke movie nowadays. But it does it without like beating you over the head with any one particular point. It's just showing you a picture of the situation and the circumstances. Well, see, you're associating woke with like idiots instead of just what it is,
I do,
which is a socially conscious thing,
You're right. Anyone that says woke,
and it's fine, you don't ever feel like you're being preached at when you're watching this movie. You just feel like you're getting an accurate representation of some shit.
Yeah, like I said, I grew up
takes
like
the
that.
message a lot further than some, easily cooked up.
Now is the fact that they just keep trying to say, "Oh, look, we're talking about this subject." Like he just told us a story, and he just showed it naturally how it just happens in everyday life, without having to mark.
Yeah,
that's what makes it answer now. Go ahead.
And actually, the production notes that I went through showed that Lee didn't really set out to make a film about race relations. He just started kicking around this idea. His first idea was what would happen in a neighborhood on the hottest day of the year. And then, the more he got into it, he was like, wow, I didn't really plan this to be a race.
It just happens, and it totally makes sense.
Naturally
happens. When you're all hot and miserable, that's the time when racial tensions totally would boil over.
I think the unfortunate aspect of a film like this, as far as looking at it from a 2022 microscope, is that you have those idiots on the right that would call it a woke film.
Yeah.
And I fucking, you know what? Even though that word started with AAVE, I hate that word now, and I fucking hate anyone who uses it.
I feel you.
Because
Me too.
when people say, "Oh, that's a woke film," you're invalidating what the film. Yeah, you're invalidating, dismissing what
sometimes
the film
it's accurate. It's a slippery slope because now they've commodified wokeness.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like a movie like this now, made by the wrong person, would just plug in buzzwords here and there and make it all sensationalized and fight people on Twitter to get the profile of the movie up, and it would just be some disingenuous thing that some random white producer came up with to cash in on the whole, socially conscious thing that's happening right now. And that's sad. Woke carries multiple different connotations to it or whatever when you think about it now, because I tend to think of most movies that deal with politics or social issues, especially if they're not like modern ones, as being quote unquote woke. But that's just because we don't have a better term for it. I guess, socially conscious or whatever would just be the word.
Socially conscious looks better.
Deal with politics. Most movies deal with politics. It's just the way you go about showing it. That's the problem, I think, with some movies. Don't try and be all cute, like, oh, look, we're talking about this subject. Just show it for what it is. I think most people are smart enough to be able to break it down. Okay, that's that. I don't have to, be all cute and say, oh, look at me, I'm talking about this. That's why I think a lot of people are getting tired of, because now they're trying to cash in on that.
Well, a lot of people
Exactly.
aren't
I
smart
think
enough.
this movie
We-
would carry the message
This
better
movie just told a
still.
story.
Sorry, Jake. I think this movie carries the message better still, and would make more of those people on the other side of the fence listen to it than some of these ones that smack you with it like a fucking wet fish for the
agree.
movie
I agree.
tickets.
Well, that's the
And then,
difference
you know,
between-
all these people that are easily triggered by that immediately tune out.
Right.
Whereas something like
That's the
this, they
difference
might
between
watch
woke-
it till the
Like,
end.
when I
That's
saw
the
Get
difference.
Out and Black Panther,
Ooh.
it was like, and those are two movies that I thought were pretty good. I thought Get Out was a good movie. I just didn't care because it's like, you don't have to keep, talking about this, talking about that. Just show it. That's my thing. Just show the actual problem instead of always having to say, okay, this, that, and the other. Because it's like,
Mhm.
okay, wow, that's great, but I don't know.
I
It's
think
something
that's
that
also the difference between Spike Lee and someone like John Singleton is that Spike Lee, his earlier stuff was a little bit more subtle. It was still
Yeah.
very, as in you see with this movie, very explosive, but it was a little bit more subtle. John Singleton, he beats you over the fucking head.
Yeah.
we did.
Boys in the Hood beats you over the head with that shit. Higher Learning beats you over the fucking head. It's like, damn, like I get, like you really making it obvious what your message is here, John.
I mean, sometimes that's warranted,
Baby
but
boy
sparingly,
too. Baby
you
boy.
know.
That's another one he
Right.
stuff like.
Well,
If you're too upfront with the message, people after a while, even regular folks that don't have a horse in the game politically, start feeling like you're Mormons coming to their door or some shit. Like, you got to make it subtle so that you can teach people shit.
I mean, when I look at movies like this, particularly Spike Lee movies, I always get very pissed off at white people because you have white people that will hate Spike Lee and still do this because they hate Spike Lee, but they are fucking quick to go see a fucking Tyler Perry Medea movie. So I'm like, so you want to see black people? Like,
I love Tyler Perry for
so
what
Hey,
he
like this,
but
like,
he
you-
does beat you over the head with stereotypes, man. Like nobody else.
yeah, like you want to see us fucking shucking and jiving, but God forbid we have a fucking message to the film. God forbid we make a Caucasian uncomfy about race
Hey,
or about
I-
socioeconomics.
That's
of the black
fine, you
community.
know.
I do love that. I do love
I'll
that
take
he
that
is
beating.
featured. I do love that he is featured in one of the most blatantly message-driven films of the year, and certainly of the Oscar race. I was very pleased to see
Talking about?
Don't Look Up. I was very pleased to see Don't Look Up had got
Oh.
some nods. Tyler Perry's quite amusing in that one.
That's surprisingly message driven.
I think my problem with a lot of it comes in when they make an explicit point to show how much of an ally the white people in the movie are supposed to be good white people or whatever. I mean, I always flash back to kind of like Gene Hackman and Mississippi's Burning. He didn't have to go on some monologue about how he's a black ally. He just slapped the shit out of that dude in a barber chair because he was pretty sure that he was involved in killing these kids, or this
Dave,
kid. Or whatever.
Oh,
Dave, you were trying to say something?
I was trying to figure out what movie because he was breaking up so much. I was like, what movie is he talking about? Murder.
Oh,
Murder in
Mississippi Burning. It's a
Mississippi
classic.
Burning, yeah.
Yeah.
Dave, you were trying to say something?
No. I guess I was saying something to Kim. I'll take that Caucasian beating. I guess.
What? No one's saying that, dude.
Well,
Wait, what? You're gonna take a beating for what?
for the fact that white people take offense with certain movies dealing with Spike Lee and all that jazz. I'll take a hit.
I
for the
will.
team.
I will admit this film is considerably more subtle in a lot of ways than Black Klansman, and considerably more subtle than Chirac. That was not subtle in the least.
I think with
But-
Spike, it's kind of one of those things because it seems like he's pretty much regarded as an old black curmudgeon by a lot of other black people too. So Spike is kind of in that position where maybe he's so outspoken about the shit that even like other black people get tired of hearing him sometimes. But it doesn't invalidate the shit that he's said,
Right.
I could
And
see
one of-
being an
one
old
of the
black
cool things-
curmudgeon if I was Spike Lee as well.
And
You know?
One of the cool things about one of the
Jazzy.
coolest things about Defy Bloods was that he gave voice to people that obviously are not people he agrees with. but he took the time with Delroy Lindo's character to have a very different voice in the conversation. So that was one of the cool things about that movie, I thought.
I think the where this stands apart from other movies that maybe fail a bit at the whole commentating on the Black experience thing is that it does just do it in that way where it treats everybody like they should be intelligent enough to understand it, you know. At least on some level. You know?
Probably should be. I mean, you shouldn't dumb something down for somebody, I think. You know?
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's, I think, part of what pisses me off with the more heavy-handed stuff, whether it's with race issues or whatever, is where they act like I'm too fucking stupid to understand what their message is, you know?
Right.
Like, just make the movie and show us, like KJ said, show us the actual events and the actions of these people and let us determine it for ourselves. You don't have to fucking annotate the shit for us.
Although
I want to add one point.
What's
though,
up?
If you don't mind. I just want to add one point. And that is, you know, even with this movie, I know a lot of Caucasians, especially in '89, were not happy with Spike Lee for this movie. But one thing you'll see now is a lot of times when they do talk about race relations and they do blame Caucasians, they blame them to the extent where it's almost as if you're going to kind of push them into being upset to the point where nobody can have any redeemable qualities and nobody can see the picture and say, okay, maybe I do need to look in the mirror. In this movie, he does kind of do that with Danny Aiello character, like we said at the end. You know, he does kind of think about it. You know, I was wrong in what I did. You know, and you do have to make a character redeemable, I think, for other people who are in the audience to say, okay, we need to take a look in the mirror at ourselves. And we're going to change it.
Right.
Because if you keep pushing a narrative on a person, they are going to get upset and be like, oh, so you're trying to offend me? Are you trying to say that I'm this or I'm that? You know, then it'll make them not listen to your message. You know, and that's the one good thing about Spike that he did in this movie. Like, everyone kind of, you know, everyone's kind of on the same level, you know? Like someone said, there are no villains. And even though Pino is kind of considered a villain, I mean, even he, you know, all of them have their own prejudices. You know?
Oh, and then, you know,
everyone has to look in the mirror, you know, in that, you know?
Yeah, and not to excuse any of Pino's shit, but he explicitly explains how he's being like harassed by his other Italian friends for hanging around with black people. So it's hard to say with him exactly how much of that is genuine and him trying to rebel against the situation.
I think that's a big part of it because I think he has the age-old issue of his father expects one thing for him and it's not really what he is wanting to do. And I think that's a big part of it, I think.
Most other Italian pizzeria owners would be happy to have it in an Italian neighborhood and do less good just to be around other Italians. But, you know, Sal has like been here for a quarter of a century, you know.
Right.
Yeah, he's proud to be in the neighborhood.
So let's go ahead and get a few more characters mentioned. Of course, we've got to mention Tina, Rosie Perez, who is Mook's girlfriend and baby mama. And
sadly underdeveloped.
Yeah,
probably the only character in the movie you can really say
and
that.
Puerto Rican. You know, that
right. She does bring the Puerto Rican thing to the forefront. We do have that one group of Puerto Ricans that you keep seeing.
Kids.
The Stoop Kids. Yeah, but she gives a little bit more voice to that group. And
she can verbally dress me down any day.
Right?
And yes, there were some unfortunate behind the scenes, a couple of one of the more unfortunate behind the scenes stories was that this was her first credit and she wasn't quite at home for much of the shoot because she wasn't an actress, or at least that was the way she was telling it in the interviews I was reading.
Apparently
and she was very he met her at a birthday party for him, I believe, that she was like dancing on the speakers and he offered her a role and she took it. There was that one scene that with the ice and the nudity and all that stuff that apparently made her very, very, very uncomfortable. And
she
so
cried,
that was,
which bothers me. You know, I mean, see here, I read more on it because if you remember when I brought it up in the chat, I was like, "That's kind of scummy," and I hope that Spike at least apologized to her. But then when you read more about Rosie's take on it, she says she felt violated, but like she feels like she violated herself because she was totally doing the yeah, cool, I'm cool with this the whole time thing.
Right. So
I still think if
like
she was
it's
crying
like-
during the take, I probably would have been like, we can figure out a different way to do this.
He could have got a
Just
body
like
double.
that.
That's my problem. He could have got a body
some
double. You know.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
possible.
Body double. Like I
And
mean,
that's also a big part of the criticism of the movie is her portrayal because, you know, when you think about it, she's really just like dancing or, you know, completely or half naked through the whole movie. She doesn't really have much of a role in terms of like being an actual character other than that she is fleshed out well enough, but you know, she really is kind of like the objectifying part of the movie in a way, and they don't ever really have
But she's
Mookie
also
address the
the-
I
fact
don't know.
that
I kind of liked the when
I
she's
liked it too,
talking
Dave.
to her mother. When she's talking to her mother,
Yeah.
and she is like, "Okay, mom," you know. It was how she was yelling at her and
Yeah,
her
it's
back at her, and that's how a Puerto Rican family
it's that
normally
Puerto Rican
acts for.
spice, baby.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about.
Right.
She could yell at me
Good
day
for
in,
nothing.
day out.
That
Right.
good for nothing man of yours in your
That
life.
sweet
You ought
New
to
York
kick him to the
accent.
curb.
Fuck yeah. But I mean,
And I
can see
believe-
where someone could level that
actually-
criticism at it. Do I necessarily agree with it 100%? No. I think like I'm probably in your boat, maybe, Jake, where they do a lot with the character for the little bit of time that she's in there. So
Actually,
it's not
um,
just
biggest
objectification of
thing-
Don't forget he was
but-
on the phone. He was on the phone with her too, and you could hear how she's kind of being bitchy on the phone.
Right.
You'd hear her side, you heard his side. Just from his side, you could hear it too. So I mean, yeah, they didn't develop her a lot, but they didn't develop her enough.
Yeah, they didn't just
Like,
leave her there as
you
a piece of
kinda-
TNA
you
like those reviews would imply.
Kind of got a feeling of that. She was kind of bossy and stuff, but then though his
Your
character,
nature, baby.
he was kind of a
Yeah.
slacker and kind of he kind of needed their direction. So I guess that the two actually can work because she's willing to boss him and he needs it. Dave's
I
like,
think yeah, she was the one there to remind him of responsibility. Her and Jade, basically.
and he ordered
Right?
the pizza just to get to see him, which was
Right.
pretty cool. Of course, then of course he takes like 45 minutes to do the
Right.
pizza because he's
I mean,
fooling
you
around
can
with her and
estimate
stuff.
how long it took. Did they use just one ice cube? Or was that multiple? You brought 2 trays to the bedroom. I imagine
Brandon,
they
were you
for
trying to say
the-
something a minute ago?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, so
The
we
ice
also
cubes on the brain. It
Yeah.
happens.
That scene had its own
Brain
controversy.
freeze.
That Ice Cube scene.
yeah.
Brain freeze.
So
I
the
took
other
a little bit offense with the mother of the kid who almost got run over by the car. Because there was no reason why she had to beat him. He was already scared enough, and then her whole response to that whole thing is, "Don't you tell me how to take care of my child."
I understand why she spanked him though.
I
I
understood, but
That's a black thing right there, though. I
I know.
understand.
I am
It's a black
100%
thing.
behind the mother.
Hold on. Kim was speaking here.
I understand
I
why
would've done
she
the same
spanked him
thing.
though.
if you were mistreating
Hey,
your
hold on.
child,
Let's let Kim get
Hold
in
on,
there
don't
real
talk
quick.
over, please.
I understand why she spanked him though. It wasn't about him almost getting hit. It was the fact that he fucking lied on
Yeah.
yeah.
the help
Yes.
and saved him. That's
She
why
was
she did it.
scared too.
Okay.
I'm sure
Yep.
she was
Yeah.
scared when she realized just looking at him that he almost got hit by a car. I mean, my dad did that to me once, and I never
Yeah.
looked at it as abuse. He was emotional. We almost got fucking killed, and it's almost like he was like
Mhm.
smacking us to make sure we were still
Yeah.
alive. Kind of. a thing.
And as far as the idea that she was grateful to the mayor and then snapped at him, I see that he crossed in her mind a line by offering
100%.
parental advice.
Parental advice, yeah.
It's like even if he's a drunk, if he saved her kid, she'll be grateful for that. But he
You
doesn't
gotta
need to
look
do
at it-
more. You know,
you gotta look at
so
it
I get
from
that.
her perspective
I
of
totally get
being
her,
like a single mom, presumably, with this kid. I mean, not to dive into like stereotypes too much, but I've definitely, known lots of single moms of various different racial backgrounds, and
That mother would have been
they're all
like that.
stuck
No,
raising kids on their own,
Yeah, I was
figuring
gonna
it
say,
out.
when your
They're-
daddy gets home.
She wasn't a single
she
mom.
does say that his dad's going to tannicide, but I mean, the point is,
Yeah.
a lot of them are stuck. A lot of moms get stuck raising the kids, so
Yeah.
to be questioned, especially in like, in front of a bunch of people about it, that's something they don't take
I guess
lightly.
in this
because-
day and age, you can't even spank your child in public, let
Which
alone
is-
beat them.
Which is more to say to the crappy society than the parents.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
Right.
that's a different
suck
argument
on
in
it.
itself. I mean, is beating your kids abuse? Yes. Is spanking your kids abuse? I don't know. There was times I fully
No.
earned my
Right.
spanking and was almost proud to take it.
Same here.
All right. So speaking of people that dole out punishment that you'd be happy to take, I suppose. We got our resident DJ, Mr. Senior Love Daddy, who's played by Samuel L. Jackson,
man.
he's
character.
just sitting there playing these great records, rocking those really colorful outfits. I did like how he had a different hat for like every hour of
he's
the
a
day.
fan of whimsical hats, and I'm down with that 100%. I especially one of my favorite scenes in the movie is during the fire hose scene
Right.
where they spray his window, and he's like, "What, motherfucker?" and he rips his like robe off and puts on a different hat. It just
Right.
got me
I
fired
love
up.
how he is on display for the
Right.
neighborhood. There's
Yeah.
a reason why he changes out the outfits, because he is fully on display for everybody who's listening to him in the neighborhood. And
Yep.
one of the funniest scenes in the movie to me was when Mookie was having a conversation about that thing with the brother, and he's supposed to deliver that sandwich, and they're sitting there right in front of his window. And if you look back in the
Right.
background, you see him doing like these gestures at him, like, "Hey."
Fucking classic.
And then, of course, he's real
He's
cool
like
about it when he
announcing
comes
the
in,
lunch on
though.
the air too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he lets Mookie dedicate that song to Tina, or that album or whatever.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
But then, unfortunately, our enjoyment of that song gets cut short by the Stoop Kids having an introduction, their introduction, I guess, in the film, because obviously they
dude.
knew him already with Radio
The
Raheem,
boombox
that
battle.
little boombox battle. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and mention as a trio the group that ends up becoming the trio of troublemakers. We have Bill Nunn as Radio Raheem, Giancarlo Esposito as Bugging Out, and Roger Guinevere Smith as Smiley. And all three of them are just kind of random characters who bounce around the scene all through the film until later on Bugging Out ends up recruiting the other two for his boycott against Sal's. So we'll start, I guess, with Raheem, who, of course, is the guy going around with, as we've mentioned before, with the massive stereo. And
I
he's
really,
got
really,
one
really-
song on perpetual rotation.
On loop.
Public Enemy Fight the Power, which
Yep.
I really loved. Radio Raheem. I thought that the character was dope. I think KJ we'd be on the same page about like the love and hate nooks and that
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the best parts of the movie.
I did love
his
that
Ghetto
Spike Lee
Blaster
took
was
the-
fucking
yeah.
sick. Like, if I were to order one online right now, it'd probably be
Yeah.
that one if I could get it. And then that whole boombox battle, dude, was just such. I don't know
Yeah.
why I love that part of that movie so much, because it just feels like something that would really happen on the block.
I
or
am
some
glad we
shit,
covered.
Yeah.
I'm glad we covered
Kroll's
Night of
trying to
the
get
Hunter.
in.
What's that?
Yeah, it was a nice accidental prelude to this that we've already covered Night of the Hunter, because that was I love that Spike Lee made it that conscious decision to
Does it have a
reference that.
boombox battle in it as well?
No, not a boombox. But you have the preacher with the love and hate tattoos on his fingers.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
get
Oh,
you.
yeah,
I was
they were,
really
okay.
hoping
They
that
were,
there was
So, Brandon, we got Kroll trying to get back on. He's
sorry.
messaging here. Yeah.
Yeah, he dropped. I
But,
was really hoping that you were talking about another boombox battle because I'm down for this all day. But that part
I don't think
really
I don't
loved.
think they had them back then.
Well, dude, I mean, it seemed like something that would really happen, and then later when you find out that his fucking boombox took like 20D batteries, it made sense.
I had a radio like that.
Right.
I also never thought about checking the date on batteries until he said something in that scene. So
I had, like I said, I had a radio, but a lot of people had boom boxes like that, big ones, and
I had a boombox, but not like a proper ghetto blaster like that.
People had those battles all the time, playing music, playing their music, like especially rock versus rap. Happened a lot. It was definitely a thing when I was growing up.
So awesome! I wish that I could experience that. I've never lived in a city where there was like other people playing different music.
I
have
I've long had an issue with hearing different songs on at the same time. It just messes me up. It's like, and that would bug me if I was sitting there jamming and someone came along. It's like, I want to play mine. And that's one thing I'll say. Like, Raheem's pretty cool, and I love that whole love-hate speech. I love the way he presents it with the boxing moves and everything. It's just
it's shot like kind of like a Man on the Street documentary style,
right? And I do think he did a great job with that. But I have to say, I'm a person who I have my own particular definitions of rudeness, and I have a weird thing about invading space. Yes. And I feel like he was extremely rude in my book. And honestly, I don't fault Sal for getting pissed off at him.
Not at all.
But I do think that they both kind of let themselves get carried away, and they could have tried to de-escalate. But so Raheem's one that I'm not going to say he had what's coming to him, because that was way too much.
Yeah, getting killed is definitely over the line.
He didn't deserve what he got.
He
and also.
To go to jail.
And Bugging Out was kind of like that too. Bugging Out, of course, Giancarlo Esposito plays this guy who is very high strung. He's the one he's the one that the dude in the Celtics jersey messes with his shoes. And,
I love him, dude. Even though I hate him, I love to hate him. Like his whole performance is goofy as fuck, but
he did a good job.
He commits himself 110% to that role.
Those chunks taken out of his hair on that one side are so fucking funny, dude.
Yeah, it didn't wasn't it Willie who made the comment to him about the crime that had been done upon his hair or something like that?
Yeah, the middle guy. Whatever
dude,
the middle guy
it
was.
is the worst fucking fade up I've ever seen. But it's also kind of awesome because it's so horrible.
You should video whoever did that to your hair. That was hilarious. That was probably one of the second favorite funny scenes.
And of course,
some characteristics though.
You're trying to say something.
Oh, go for it.
It's gone.
KJ,
I guess.
I feel like it takes his mic a minute to build up.
What?
I thought you were trying to say something and got cut off.
No, what I was going to say about Bugging Out was this. I mean, the performance by Giancarlo Esposito was great. My only problem with his character was like the scene with the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
My problem with that scene is like the Wall of Fame is like, I understand you looking at a place and you don't see certain things maybe to represent different cultures or whatever, but that's Sal's business. You can't tell Sal what he's supposed to have on his wall and then get so defiant about it. It's like, bro, you got to have some respect. It's like, eat your pizza and go home or go someplace else where, they do
it's
that.
An Italian restaurant. They're Italian dudes,
Right.
But his name is Bugging Out. So, that's a play on words. It's a play on words.
And
Yeah.
I know that it's a valid enough point that he made if he had made it at a lower volume and respectfully and just said, "Hey, Sal, by the way," instead of
Honestly,
going
dude,
off on him about it. But I do think that,
I don't think it's very valid.
there's a very amusing irony to that, though. That's the fact that he is half Italian. I do think that is pretty amusing that he ended up in that role. But like I said, he really does commit himself to that role. And basically, after he gets kicked out of Sal's for causing a stupid fuss, he goes around trying to get everyone to boycott Sal's. And so you have this kind of montage where he's getting dressed down by everyone else going, "No, man, we
Yeah,
love
no one
his
gives a
pizza."
shit.
But it's
Yeah,
very
no one
much like
cares.
today. It's very much like today. Like if people have
Yeah.
an issue with something, they go straight to social media and say, "This is the
Yeah.
reason why we should boycott
Yeah,
this place,
he
cancel
definitely
Yeah.
was one
this,
of those more
cancel."
active.
Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy how this
Nowadays.
kind of reverberates, later on.
Yeah, he was trying
Except
to
now it
cancel Sal,
happens,
but
and
yeah.
a bunch
trying
of
to cancel
bored
Sal.
people get on board
Yeah.
with it and fucking make it
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
And Sal's back then probably would have been canceled, at least by a bunch of people that don't live in the neighborhood and don't give a fuck anyways,
Oh, yeah.
So likely the result would have been the same because the people that actually care would have still been going there.
Right.
There are two things
And I love that it doesn't gain any traction, dude, because if they had
Yeah.
made the movie the whole message was that he should have black people on the lawn there or whatever, it's like, well, I mean, that's kind of between him and those people.
That would have pissed me off.
And really, I don't think that he's necessarily has to.
Yeah.
If I was to have like a wall of, I'm Canadian, so if I opened like a pancake restaurant,
Exactly.
I might put a wall of famous hockey players up there. Black people are going to be in the minority. That's just,
Yeah.
just the way that it is,
And
So-
Logan now represents those people who are never satisfied. They're
Oh,
never
yeah.
satisfied with anything.
And actually, his complaint,
yeah.
his complaint about the wall was directly after his complaining about the pizza, which actually both he and Raheem do that. But apparently, it's a running gag in the film is that Sal, by their standard, doesn't put enough cheese on his pizzas, and so you have that thing.
No
was like
pizza place
everybody is always
Like
asking for
pizzas-
the extra cheese,
Yes.
and it's like
Yes.
$2, and no one wants to do that.
Yeah.
And I get it.
yeah, it's like what was it? It's like the pizza's $1.50. It's like
It looked fine.
I want more cheese on it. Well, extra cheese is $2. No,
To be
I want
fair,
like
Sal's
I want
pies
that. Just
did
put
look
more cheese on it.
adequately cheesed, like
They weren't as cheesy as they could have been. That's for sure.
But the
definitely.
crust, you're not thinking about New York pizza.
Kinda.
Forrest, are you in there?
Yes, I'm here.
Is that not a thing? Like, the toppings are one part of the pizza in New York. The crust is a big deal, right? Am I wrong?
No, crust is a big deal. I typically I would order but most just order it plain. Top and you got to get it plain. You got to get it plain, just plain cheese.
You gotta
Yeah.
have
That's-
extra cheese though.
So you get that feel for the cheese and the sauce and the crust, and then if you get other shit later,
And when the crust comes
what
out,
you're getting.
Yep, and when the crust comes down to it's the water.
All right, so going
yeah.
back to the
So
whole
Sal's
thing,
pizza practices aren't that far off from like real life, probably.
Well, probably. What were you
so
saying,
going
Kim?
back to bugged out, like that dude, like I'm gonna say right now, I'm pretty much every black person can say that they know someone like this, a fucking hotep
Yes.
that talks a big game but never comes up with any fucking solution.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
that's what I mean. He
Preach.
just talks shit. It's like he's complaining about the fucking pizza. Oh, I spend good money here. Then he's complaining and bitching about the wall. We deserve to have our people on this wall. It's like, okay, I get that you feel that that's probably how you're in a black neighborhood. You got to have white people in the mall, but the way he put it, it's like, dude, you're in his business. Like,
Yeah.
how fucking dare you? And like you said, if you want a bunch of people on the wall, get your own fucking business. But instead of him looking at that and saying, well, let me have a solution. Let me see if I can come to him with a compromise. And his first thing is, we're going to fucking boycott Sal.
Boycott. Yeah, I got your boycott right here.
And
Yeah.
the
Right
thing
here.
is,
And he
that's
like
what
punches
I'm saying.
his arm out.
He goes from person to person to person, from neighbor to neighbor, and they all basically tell him to fuck off. And I'm like,
Right.
somebody tells me this guy does this like fucking like every week. He has a new crusade.
Well,
Every week
Probably.
he has something he's outraged
Ken,
about. And
it's a
everyone's so fucking
huge
used to
trend
it.
nowadays. It's a huge trend nowadays, unfortunately. I like to call them anti-activists.
I was going to say cause heads.
Because what they do is not productive. And the conversation between Bugged Out and Mookie's sister in the movie is where they kind of highlight that, where she's like, you could put your energy to so much more productive things, you know?
Right.
What is that doing good for the neighborhood to be mad about this Italian dude's wall of fame of Italian people? You know, like
Right.
it really does highlight how stupid the idea of that is in the movie, you know.
Right.
And to his credit, you know, Spike as Mookie does do a serviceable job of, you know, portraying his character as being absolutely disinterested in the politics behind any of this shit
You
going
can
on
almost
at the
feel the eye
restaurant,
roll
you know?
when they talk.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
He's
when you see Bugging Out talking, you can almost feel the eye roll of some of the people behind.
Oh yeah.
shut up, dude. Not
But,
again, you know.
There were two parts with him. Oh, sorry,
No,
Andy, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, man. No, you go ahead. I'll go after you.
I just had there were two parts, and I was curious about other people's thoughts on it. As I try to block another Russian bot. There were two parts of this, and I was curious if anybody else saw it. The one was when he's walking and Bookie's giving the guy, like, you know, you stand up to your brother speech, and Bugging Out starts to go off on it. He says, "Look, man, he's fine. He's good."
Yeah.
And then he goes to he shakes his hand, and then he goes to shake his hand. He's like, "No, he doesn't." Does this little wave, like, you know, phew, go away, type thing. But then the other one where he's got the shoes thing, and he's all ramped up with it, and the crowd is there, but then the crowd's like pushing him to go and fight this buff white guy.
Right.
And
Feels like-
you notice that he backs off at this time, like he's like, well, you know, you're lucky I'm a man of peace. But you see him as like, they ain't backing me up on a fight with this guy. I'm not gonna do that. He
Right.
doesn't look like the kind of guy who would fight somebody on his own.
No, he's
I
just
think
a
Like,
loud
try
mouth.
and sick other people on.
Well,
I
he
think the
has
whole
this,
dude in the
oh.
Celtics. Go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say he has like this whole speech that he gives them of like, not only did you knock me down, you stepped on my brand new white Air Jordans I just bought, and all you can say is "excuse me." But then, you know, he says, "Who told you to step on?" You know, and who told you all this?
Who
He's
told
like,
you about brownstone?
I own this brownstone. Who told you to buy a brownstone on my block, in my neighborhood, on my side of the street? And it's like, and again, yeah, he's spoiling for a fight, but he's really, I think it's the four kids, right? With
Yeah, they're the ones that
Martin, C and Punchy and all them, yeah. And he figures they'll punch him up, but they're not about to.
When he does say, like, I was born in Brooklyn, so I mean that's and clearly, you know, it's implied based on his appearance and the jersey and stuff that he's also like Irish American, which you know, I mean, anytime you bring this shit up,
He
people
told him
always
go back to Massachusetts.
anytime you bring this type of shit up, people always assume you're trying to compare it to the black experience or, you know, undermine that in some way. But Irish Americans didn't have it easy in this fucking country at first either. And lots of them were born in, you know, the low rent tenements of places like Brooklyn or any of these number of, you know, what's there, 5 boroughs in New York. I'm sure they were scattered all around there back in like the potato sucking depression days, you know. So New York is one of those cities that a lot of minorities have paid for in blood, sweat, and tears over the years. And they all feel like they have their own claim to different parts of it, you know.
The feeling I got from his behavior, though, was that this is on his little tirade at the gentrifier is round the backs of him wanting to boycott sales and nobody will listen.
Yeah.
So it's like he's
got a crowd.
Yeah, he's
like
trying to flex
dude,
his power and his nuts wherever he can.
And
he's taking
another
his anger out the gentrifier.
And another thing I want to highlight on, though, and this is a social commentary. I don't know if Spike wrote this into the script for his character, but Giancarlo is biracial. And one thing I'm going to say, and this is coming from me as a black man, I've dealt with many different people in the black community. When you have people who are biracial, one thing I'm going to say is a lot of times I feel bad for them because they get put in this odd predicament where you have to choose which side of the street you're going to be walking on. And for those who choose to be on the black side of the street, they always have to prove themselves. That's how they feel sometimes. They have to go all above and beyond about, oh, fight the power, F the police, F this. And it's like, bro, you can calm down, man. Nobody's looking at you any kind of way, bro. We love you,
just
man.
Relax.
Calm down.
Black,
just relax.
Speak
relax,
Spanish
bro.
or some shit.
Right, just relax. And but they feel like they have to go above and beyond, and you see that a lot with bugging out character. Like he is always bugging out about something.
Right.
Yeah, I think honestly that exists in across the spectrum. There's always those people inside of your racial bracket or whatever that are trying to tell you how to be like a good fucking black person or Puerto Rican.
But it's different
or
for them,
whatever,
though. I want to say that it's different though because when you have two different races that you're identifying, two different cultures that you're identifying with. It's like one might shun you, and that can be very traumatic in a way. Like I've seen it with some people. Like it's kind of sad, like their white side of the family won't even speak to them, because they view them as an enemy. I mean, that's how it is. Especially down south.
One example is Meghan Markle. Look at her. Like she spent her whole career and her whole life embracing both her side, her white side, and her black side, and then she got her true black card by means of the British press when they treated her like shit. And it's like at the end of the day, you were trying to bridge the gap between both sides of you, but you're always gonna be black to so many of these people. And you got people like
I think a certain part of it is human conditioning, right? Like we're all at some point here we made the mistake to condition everybody to rank everybody else.
Right.
I should
mention that before.
I mean, there's plenty of white people that will tell you, basically, white people got so bored, we started doing it based on economic, educational, and social class. So, if you're not an educated, college educated white person, you're looked at as a fucking idiot. You're the Carhartt demographic or some bullshit. And it's I always look at that and then racism and all this shit and think why the fuck do people have this much time on their hands to hate other people for some whack shit?
As a black female, I've gotten a lot of those "you're an Oreo" shit over the years. You talk like a white girl. I've gotten that my whole life.
Stupid.
It is stupid. But what I'm trying to say is that whenever I got hit, and I got that from my fellow black people. So whenever I got hit with that, I felt the need that I need to prove myself. And I'm not biracial. I'm fucking dark. I'm a dark-skinned black woman. I'm not. I can't pass for Meghan Markle, not by a long shot. But I still.
Hey, none of us can. Okay. Kim, I'll say this: you do sound like. Kim talks more like a white person when we're talking about white people shit, But whenever I hear Kim sound black, I love it because it's
no, but black people,
because she can fit right in with the wine drinking crowd, but then Kim's like, I don't give a shit,
I should mention. So actually, because I'm half Asian, half white. And before I was born, my grandmother, I've heard of her say a lot of racist stuff growing up. Well, apparently before I was born, she told my parents your grandkids are because she's like an old school racist Long Islander, and she was like, oh, the kids. She said that my parents that I was going to grow up confused, because it's confused. Yeah, because my mom's Asian, my dad's white, and he's not going to be either. That's what she said to my parents when they were expecting me.
Well, I mean, in one sense, she's right because that's how multiracial kids live. You're white and you're Asian, and that's fine. What did she think was he's gonna be confused?
Yeah.
We should probably move forward.
Yeah,
We gotta go to
yeah.
movie
But
together.
I'll start now.
Yeah.
My mom is my grandmother's least favorite daughter-in-law, historically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're my
Alright,
most
so-
favorite Forrest. Forrest.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
you might
that
be
means
more.
something.
my dad screwed up by marrying an Asian.
Right. So yeah, and Brandon does bring up a point. We definitely need to move along a little bit. I want to definitely
We got
take at least
another movie
a
to
couple.
do.
Yeah, I definitely want to at least take a couple of minutes on Smiley, because again, he's the third one of that triumvirate.
I feel like
He's the guy-
Smiley's in poor taste now because there are moments in the movie where he's used as comic relief, and not to be woke, but it's just kind of like, I don't
It's
know.
probably one
Jack.
of the it's probably one of the elements that's aged more poorly than most.
Yes.
Now, apparently, the character was not in the script, but the actor had been in School Days and really, really, really wanted a part. And he got with Spike Lee and really wanted a part. And they ended up coming up with this character. Now, there are a couple of fun things. One is he has that famous picture of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and he has colored it, and he's going around selling it. And that's pretty much what he does while he's listening to tape, apparently, of one of Malcolm X's speeches or whatever. And he gets drafted,
or like a Walkman necklace. Like
he gets mistreated, particularly by Pino. Pino was downright vicious to him in that one scene. And he ends up joining the cause, if you will. And Spike said that they called him Smiley partly because he never smiles. That apparently that was the thing. He doesn't until the very end, when he goes and puts that picture up on the Wall of Fame, and he has that big ghastly smile with the fire behind him. I actually thought that was a really cool image. And
it was. I think Smiley's one of those characters where
that scene pissed me off.
It's one of those characters that would have benefited from a modern portrayal, if they did that nowadays. I think that the character of Smiley would have been like an autistic kid that really had been in the neighborhood for a long time, maybe saw the shit that happened to these people and was like, even being autistic, that's worse than what they do to me. So he took up the cause. Maybe we could have had a flashback through that told during the lead up to the, if they, talking if they did this like Netflix style nowadays.
Right. Well, anyway,
a lot of things they could have done with the character, and he ended up just being like the mentally handicapped comic relief during a couple of scenes. I wouldn't even call it comic relief, just sort of the butt of the joke, I guess.
Yeah.
It was the late 80s. People weren't as sensitive to that stuff back then. So I can forgive it on that level.
It does allow a little bit of character development in terms of the way the other characters interact with him. But,
they actually wrote shit for the dude, which is good. They didn't just use it as like a way to punctuate funny moments,
So I think that probably does cover the majority of the characters, and we do need to scooch it along. So the basic plot, again, such as it is, who do we lose just then? Was that Kroll again?
Yes.
So
okay, well, we'll hopefully he'll get back with us. Basically, we have like I said, a relatively straightforward plot such as it is, and we've already covered a lot of it. But the main narrative point, of course, a couple of them. One is kind of Mookie's kind of story of kind of getting by, kind of in his interactions with the neighborhood. And the other being kind of the story of the pizzeria and their interactions with the neighborhood. And then, of course, you have Bug and Out's crusade, as it were, to start some trouble. And, the three of them end up teaming up. And that's really, I guess, where the plot kicks into gear. is where the three of them team up together and go into Sal's together, which actually I can't remember who pointed it out. Well, what's up?
No, go ahead. You first. You can't
Well,
remember who pointed it out. What?
I was going to say I can't remember who pointed it out, but someone pointed out that was getting Raheem to join the cause was what Bugging Out needed to be able to show his face in the restaurant again.
Yeah. And Raheem basically just did it because he was just mad that the dude was a dick to him earlier. So it wasn't that he was necessarily behind the cause that this fucking quack was like shocking on people. He just was pissed and full of testosterone, as I imagine his body was mostly made of that. And
and again, even
there to fight, you know.
Well, and again, even Smiley, with the way he'd been treated by Pino, he had a bone to pick too. So all three of them were just, they were kind of keyed up because of the hot day, and they had all felt like they'd been mistreated by this family, and, they go in to give them a piece of their mind. And, of course, by this point in the evening, Sal's been dealing with stuff all day too, and getting a little antsy. And by the way, Brandon crawls back. I don't know if you saw that message there.
I was away from the computer.
I think the best choice that they made in the whole end sequence with Sal is having him let those kids in, even though they were closed. Like that part of it.
Even though he shouldn't have, though, unfortunately.
Well, that kind of ended up being the decision that might come back to haunt him, because he was locked up. They were ready to go, and the kids wanted in, and Mook and Pino are both like, "Don't let them in. It's time to go." And he's like, "No, they want food. I'm going to give them food," which again showed that he really did care about them. Yeah, he did care about the
person in the movie. He loved them.
He didn't care about the money.
Right.
He just cared
lived
about
among these people. I think on some level too, he was proud that they were so different, Yeah. Because when he has that scene with Pino earlier in the movie where he's like, "Why are you so full of hate, man? Like, your friends might talk shit, but are they the people that put food on your table?" And he had that whole impassioned bit.
He's like, "They're not your friends. They wouldn't talk about you like that. They were your friends.
They're going to talk about you like that."
Yeah. So then,
good.
Well, so then we have the big thing where they come in, and Raheem's got his big radio, and they're all kind of spouting off, and Sal gets out his Louisville Slugger, and he's spouting off, and they're just getting, you got the weird camera angles and everything, just showing how intense it is.
Angry,
and then finally,
everyone is
angry, and then finally Sal just loses it and wails on that stereo with the bat, and you get this scene where just cutting back and forth between them, like Raheem looking on in disbelief and Sal just and then you got the dead calm afterwards.
Yes, that's the most important part.
It's like the ocean moment.
Because they're all like, "Holy shit, Sal just actually said that and murdered this guy's boombox."
Oh, yes, he used that word, and
he did.
And I think that really punctuates the idea that Sal's not the type of person to normally say something like that. Like,
no.
Every single one of us here is capable of saying some dumbass shit if we were ever in a situation like that.
Definitely.
I have been in a situation where, regrettably, I did scream racial slurs back at the people.
But I've never been in a situation. I've never been in a situation where I screamed out a racial slur, and I don't care. I'm gonna be honest here. Sal, up until that scene, I was almost on Sal's side. Because he enabled Pino way too fucking much, and he was creepy with the sister. But I was like, Sal's kind of a stand-up guy. He's not a bad guy. Look at how he treats the mayor and all that stuff like that. But the minute that word came out of his mouth, I said, "Oh no, fuck him," because I have been majorly pissed off at someone, and you know what never came out of my fucking mouth? A racial slur. Everything else may have come out of my mouth, calling out their name, calling them their mama a bitch, whatever. But I never went for something that person can't fucking change, which is
I
their
mean,
race.
me and you have made
The
fun
minute
of
you
like
go
mad
there-
white people though, just in our time
Well,
together.
Now,
since
also,
I've
he
been
also
doing this
did the
show,
racial
you know.
slur to him as well first.
That's
but,
what I'm saying.
but it doesn't mean the same thing, yeah.
It's wrong no matter who
It
does
is wrong.
As
It
a
is
black
wrong.
person,
You know,
as much as I've been pissed off at someone.
I'm just
who's
gonna
not
level
black,
about it right now, dude. This one time, me and my neighbors were like in a fight because of some shit that went down to the stupid. It was like a mutually stupid situation, you know. But we were all yelling at each other, and I found myself, I guess, in a Sal kind of situation, and you know, they were yelling all this shit, and I don't know if they fucking said it. I mean, they said all types of shit about me being white, and I definitely like called the one dude a beaner at one point, you know, and we've reconciled since then, and I've apologized for it. But it's a thing that can happen, you know, I suppose.
I mean,
If you're all that worked up and you're like already saying shit to insult each other,
It's happened to me too.
you know, race is right there with like marital situations and you know, the way that you raise your kids. I mean, when people are that mad, they'll say some fucked up shit. Those same people were telling me that my girlfriend was a slut and that I didn't take care of my daughter, you know. So it was like we were just saying dumb shit to hurt each other. And we all
I agree with Ken,
thankfully
though.
were
I've
able to
never
realize and be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I said
I've
that
never
shit to
gone
you,
there.
you know.
Yeah, but your girlfriend
Yeah.
was on this guy.
I want to
She
say
was.
this about
She was a slut. You're right, Carl. Thank you for reminding me.
For a lot, well, the point being that for a lot of
they're a fucking movie.
the
But you're a
point
good
being
dad,
that for a
so-
lot of people that is a bridge too far, and it definitely wasn't this one. It definitely, again, those the kids who we didn't really talk too much about, but they're kind of here and there throughout the film, and they were kind of cheering on Sal until he used
he
that
said
word,
that.
and then
Everybody
then
but that
turned-
girl was like,
Mhm.
let's
Yeah.
fuck him up
Yeah.
now, you know?
Yeah. And that's kind of because if he can say it in a heated moment of anger, who's to say he wouldn't say it at another time? You know, it's kind
You
of
know what? I think
Like
it's
people
one of
who
those
say
things that everybody fucking says, though, you know? Like,
yeah.
I'm just gonna say this.
I'm
It's like
just going
people
to
who sit there and
vehemently
blame
disagree with
alcohol or
that.
Ambien
To say that
on
that
their-
should be the reason we rank that as worse in our country is
I get it.
because of what we did to black people, you know, which
Right.
obviously our next movie will do that. You know, but
So,
it's like,
yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
that
yes,
some
right.
random Italian pizzeria chef in the last, or anybody that's ever done anything wrong should have to face consequences for what. I mean, I don't know, man.
Right.
Being a
So-
low income dude that's grown up
Can I say
around
one
low
thing?
income people
Go
and
for it.
Mexicans and shit, I think most people
Yeah.
are pretty happy if we can just all live together on our social runs.
Right.
That's what we got to change, I think. And then the
I-
racism will naturally sort of go out the window with it because it'll be us in charge. You know?
Go for it, KJ.
I just want
Sorry.
to say one thing. This is me coming from a black man's point of view on this, and I can understand where Kim is coming from. I can very much understand it. But the one thing I'm going to say about this movie and about saying that is, many people say a lot of things when they're upset. Things that when they really think about it, they'll probably regret it because they realize I let somebody else control me. Sal let somebody else control him, and he said a wrong word at the wrong time, and that fucked up his whole entire life. It destroyed his own shop. So he did lose something for saying that word.
Right.
He did.
Yeah.
He had to pay a price for it. And by the end of the movie, he kind of realized I was wrong. I fucked up.
Well, I think it wasn't. It didn't even take him that long. Like when everyone's milling around in front of the store, like basically at that point, Raheem attacks him and drags him out of the store pretty much, and they managed to get him pulled off. But basically but then of course the cops come in and break it up, and that's where we get that. Yeah, but I think I'm trying to remember now. I'm kind of hazy here. I want to say they do what you got to do was after that happened. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yes.
But basically, yeah. So basically, the cops come.
after
Yeah.
everything
the
happens, and that's when he says it.
Yeah.
It's
The
basically
the-
right when the cops leave.
Right.
And
So
I
basically,
think,
we have
Right.
these two cops that we've been seeing all day who are played by Miguel Sandoval and Rick Aiello, Danny's son. And the two of them are involved. They're the ones that restrain Raheem, and they do a little more than restrain him. And there's even another cop there saying, "This is going too far. Stop."
Yep.
You know,
It's
they
that other like
stopping them.
Italian-looking cop that was at the beginning
Right.
asking Sal, like, "Are you going to move out of the neighborhood?" And that big white
Right.
hip guy just never gave a shit. But like that little
Right.
Italian dude with the mustache was like, "Are you ever going to move out the neighborhood, Sal?" And Sal was
Right.
like, "Nah, I figure we'll be here for at least another 15 years, you know, which would
Right.
have made it like 40 years at the location."
I think he said 50, but anyway, yeah. So they
No.
so they kill Raheem.
No,
And
40.
well, I think he said 50 is what I'm saying.
He
I
said
could be wrong, but anyway.
Probably. Who cares?
So, and they capture Buggin' out. They arrest him and throw him in the back of a car. But they try to pass off Raheem as being arrested, but it's obvious that
He's
no,
dead.
you
He's
know,
dead.
it's obvious, and they and that of course the crowd just kind of, you know, they turn and they start closing in, and yeah, Sal, you know, he's got his sons with him. He kind of, you know, but he doesn't try to do anything to further escalate.
Antagonist, yeah.
No, yeah, he just says, yeah,
He thinks about it a minute, and he's like,
well,
"You guys do what you gotta do."
Mookie had been standing with them, and he walks out in the crowd and turns around and looks at him. And then that, I think, is when he said, you do what you got to do. And then Mook just basically goes, gets a trash can, and throws it through the window. And that sets it off.
I think what's significant is like the mayor, you know, he's like, hey, they are not the ones that killed Raheem. And
he's trying to keep the peace.
Hold on, let Kim talk through. Let her finish her point.
Go for it.
Brandon had said earlier that when he was listening to the commentary, that Spike Lee had said that people were calling Ossie Davis' character an Uncle Tom in that moment. And you see that a lot within the Black community. When we're done wrong by a white person, the first thing that we're told is, oh, do you forgive your attacker? Do you forgive them? We're expected to forgive and move on. Now, while Sal and his sons weren't the ones that killed Raheem, they weren't even the ones that called the fucking cops. That was obvious. The anger, they couldn't take their anger out on the cops for obvious reasons. So who's next to take the white guys who own a business in our neighborhood that our friends got killed over? Even if
when
Raheem
the cops
was wrong, what he did, they turned that anger on them. And then you had the mayor, he comes in, he's like, yeah, he's a drunk, he's crazy, but he's just like, wait a minute here. This is going too far now. Someone's dead. And
that was the point I was making earlier, was that the mayor's intervention right there really gives Mookie the time to go throw the trash can through the window and divert everybody's attention away from Sal to the business, to the physical location that's covered by insurance anyways. I mean, despite the history of it, it's like,
I think it is.
I'd rather see you go out like with, you know, like they do, than, you know, have him dead and an even bigger situation there. Imagine if they'd killed Sal. I mean, even without the extreme preferential treatment, the Italians still got more notice than the other minorities down there.
Going down. I'm talking about the fact that Black people called the mayor an Uncle Tom. Up to that point in the movie, Black people who saw the movie, they were like kind of laughing at the mayor, kind of like, okay, he's sort of like whatever. But in that moment, Black people turned on this character and said he was an Uncle Tom for even thinking about defending the white people. And I was like, damn, we see that a lot in the Black community where, you know, if we side with even if the white person is wrong in any way, if we side with them, we are immediately a traitor. And I was like, well, damn, like I was hoping, I was so scared in that moment that when they started bugging out, that they would turn their anger onto the mayor as well. I was like, oh no, dude, like don't hurt him.
Don't get me wrong, dude. It hurts, but I can understand it. It's like one of those things where it's like, you'd almost, to hear certain people talk, you'd almost think that there wasn't white advocates, but at the same time, it's like, do you really like whine about not getting credit for something like that? Who gives a shit? Like, as long as the shit's getting heard. But yeah, I don't know. I think Spike Lee has earned a lot of vitriol from like non-black people over the years for seeming like he just hates white people. But when you watch a movie like this, it's clearly not the case.
Right, because look at the irony of that situation. Mookie saved Sal's life. I don't think enough people talk about that though. Mookie.
What happened?
Mookie saved Sal's life, even after he called, Raheem the N-word. It's like he still saved his life, because if he didn't throw the trash can, Sal's dead.
Yeah,
and actually, Mookie and Sal is really the relationship of the movie that matters.
I admit that was something that I didn't get the first time I saw it. I thought it was kind of weird. But then this time around, I think I got a little more out of it. But it was really more when I was looking into the background that I was like, yeah, and apparently Spike Lee did not make that definitive either. He kind of was like, some people say this is why Mookie did it. And I think that's a fun reason, because the idea that he was protecting them in a way, and that he was... in no small way ending their presence in that community, but he was protecting them physically by turning the focus to the building. But one thing that Spike Lee has said repeatedly over the years, and he says a lot in the bonus material, is that he finds it fascinating and more than a little galling that everyone asks him why Mookie threw the trash can if it was the right thing, except for the main point of this entire movie is no, I didn't finish. Everyone asks him who's white. He says no black person has ever asked him why Mookie threw the trash can. And another thing that he definitely finds galling, that he finds more amusing from what I understand, but he finds it galling that everyone focuses on the destruction of the pizzeria rather than the death of Raheem.
Well,
and that's kind of...
Fuck that pizzeria.
That's the exact...
Like all the critics were talking about that,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the problematic issue lies nowadays with it, where it's like, the initial thought is fuck that pizzeria, but at the same time, Sal's Pizza had been there as a constant for those kids through 25 years of life.
But it's not a life.
Yeah, it wasn't Sal's life. It wasn't Raheem's life.
Yeah.
It was. It's much better that they focus their attention on something Sal can recoup like insurance shit from, than to have them do something that would change the entire vibe. Like the mayor said, if they killed Sal, that would have been something none of them would have ever lived through. Right?
This is the crux of what people, and again, I did want to make this point. I've tried to not go overboard most of this, but this is one thing I did want to say, because this really struck me and it helped me understand a lot of things even today from this perspective. Is when I first watched this, my first thought was, oh my God, look at this business being destroyed. I'm not going to lie. That's my thought. That was my first thought. And that's because it's coming from the position of being a white guy raised in that. But as I watched it the second and the third time, the more I said to myself, yes, the business had to go. It had to happen. Yeah, well, it didn't have to happen, but I understood why.
Based on the circumstances.
It also makes me mad. Hold on, Mo. Hold on. It also makes me really mad because I understand when conservative media especially says we don't really care about the lives lost with BLM. We care more about the stores being burned out. And that's the same thing.
I mean, it's whenever you have protests in response to another unarmed black person being killed by the police, the first thing that people complain about is, oh, Antifa and BLM are burning down businesses. I'm like, fuck those businesses. Now, I'm not saying it's right to do that, but you're
Right.
telling me you care more about a fucking store
No, that's not
than
what
you do. Not
people are
you.
saying.
I'm not saying you.
Oh, it's absolutely what a lot of people are saying.
It is.
Ah!
You know, if you're gonna get
People
into
are
the weeds
ignoring the
with it
point
like
Tim
that,
is making.
What I'm
no, I
saying
get,
is, I'm
I
not
fully
saying
get
that-
it. I just disagree. I think that, you know,
You're saying that the
people
business
are
is more
also.
important than the loss of the life.
That's what I'm saying. The people who get mad about those businesses, they're not thinking about the life that's lost. When people,
Oh, I'm still pissed that definitely like some dude got fucking killed, but I'm also pissed that they burned down like the bodega on the end of the street that had like the notches from their kids growing tall in the hallway.
What I'm
You
saying
know,
is
I
that,
mean,
like,
somebody can be mad about both things.
I agree. I agree because I'm black and I do understand where Kim is coming from. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think there's any reason for you to destroy another man's livelihood, a woman's livelihood,
Yes.
for the sake of making a
Quarter
point. Because
century.
because
agree.
one thing I'm going to say too is their kids got to eat too. You destroy their business, should their family starve? I mean, you have to be mindful of those two things. It's a touchy subject because
and
I get where you're coming from.
and I was trying to get to that, but everyone keeps interrupting me. So my point that I was trying to make is that as fucked up as it is to burn someone else's business down, particularly someone that did not have anything to do with that, like the Korean man, they were about to torch his shit, and he had nothing to do with that situation. He was on their side, so that was fucked up. Regardless, like burning down Salt business, like it made no sense to me. Like I understand maybe why, but it's like it's still fucked up. But when you compare that with watching someone slowly get the life choked out them, fuck that business.
That's the thing is when you
I mean, it depends on how you're comparing it, you know.
What was that, Brandon?
You've got that much anger and you've got that much rage and you know nothing will be done about it.
Yeah.
When this business is burned, it brought the mayor's attention. If the guy had just died, they had swept it under the rug. Oh, it's just another thug that got killed.
Yeah, justifiable homicide. Yeah.
And nothing would be said. But when the business got burned, suddenly the mayor is coming down to the area. You hear at the end where Sam Jackson is talking, like maybe he'll sit down with our Mr. Mayor and buy him a drink.
Yeah. One of the only times that they convicted a cop for shooting an unarmed person was when it was a black cop shooting an unarmed white woman. You know, sometimes change has to happen when someone who's not a person of color is the victim of a violent crime or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Again,
in
I'm
the
not
context
saying
of this
I
film,
would just wish personally, as a man, I would just wish people would have enough emotional responsibility and enough sense to be a fucking adult and say to yourself, "Is it right for me to treat somebody differently based on the color of their skin?" I can't go with breaking the law. I can't go with that. But I will at least say, have enough sense to look at a situation and examine it. What if I was in your fucking shoes? And I know people ain't gonna do it. I know that for a fact. But but it's not right to burn someone's business. I mean, just period. I mean,
dude, I'm all about the burning of civilization. I think that you should burn any business you can. If there's ever a riot, just go burn it and take those Wendy's hamburgers, whatever. But don't burn like local businesses.
Because one thing you gotta think about is
don't burn the corner store bodega because that's where we buy our 40s.
Don't burn the innocents.
But here's my thing. Here's my thing about burning buildings. Because this happened down there in Georgia. I'm not too far from Georgia. I remember when I forgot the black guy that got shot in Georgia. I forgot his name. But he got shot at Wendy's. There was a white woman who went to the Wendy's and burned it. And you know what? They thought it was BLM. They got blamed for it. Black people got blamed for that burning, and they didn't even fucking do it.
I don't doubt you, dude.
So my thing is
very many more people qualified to deal with it than I am. But my point is, don't burn down local businesses. You know?
Right.
A lot of our Oregon volunteer, activists got that wrong and burnt down a lot of local businesses over the last couple of years. And it's just like, man, why would you do that? That was probably owned by like some black or brown or like Asian person, and you just burnt the shit to the ground without thinking about it. That's my issue with that. It's like, let's target it. For sure, raid the Apple store.
So
get your free iPads and some Nike Airs or something. I'd be right there with you if I could. But
Take us home, Jake. Take us home.
Yeah. So go ahead and we have a coda the
Maybe don't
following
burn
morning.
down
The following morning, we have a coda where basically the main thing that happens, you get to hear a little more of Senior Love Daddy kind of narrating, tying up some loose ends. Like we said, the mayor's coming down. But mainly it's about Mookie and Sal having one last little talk. And I think it's kind of a nice little interaction. It's very tense at first because Mookie does have some pretty big cojones to go down there and demand his pay right after what he did.
But again, I think he knew he could do that because Sal is Sal.
Right.
They
end up having what you might call a resolution, which is, again, we find out canonically a few years down the road that they were working together again.
I love it so much. I'm just smiling so hard over here that my cheeks hurt because you guys told me that they actually do reconnect and continue doing the same shit.
That is
23 years later. 22 years later. No, 23 years later.
Right.
That's amazing.
So
that's fucking amazing. Go ahead.
Right. So basically, I just want to go ahead before we go into favorites. So I guess we'll do a little bit on production, but very little because of time. Does anyone have any particular scene or moment or whatever that they think is integral to the plot that we kind of skipped over? Anything they really want to mention?
I think that the scene between Sal and Pino, where he's talking to him and he's like, why do you got so much hate? I've served these people my entire life, basically.
We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, we mentioned that a little bit, but that's a good scene.
That's probably my favorite scene in the movie, maybe.
What's up, Brandon?
There was the scene between Pino and Mookie where he points out, so who's your favorite actor? Eddie Murphy. Who's your favorite sports star? Magic Johnson. He's like, they're not black. They're more than black, and I think that's something that is.
I'm just crazy.
I think secondary scenes, then, other than that one, probably my favorite moment in the movie is. I don't know, man. I think just that end moment with Mookie and Sal.
So we'll get to the favorites in a moment. Just a couple things quick on production. We kind of already mentioned, but the movie is full of bright colors to basically help show how hot everything is. And of course, they did everything on a very small budget. They did most everything on location. We already talked about them building a full pizzeria. Did anyone have any comments further on that, of any things that they were particularly impressed by production-wise?
I love how, I still say that Sal's building that is just understated by how well they did it. Not only did they build it, but they built it to withstand a controlled burn. They had that thing set up perfectly. It's an amazing feat. And from what I understand from the commentary, the guy who built it, they made sure he was offset when they destroyed it.
Yes. They told him it would be one day, and they did it the day before. Which I understand that. It's kind of,
that is funny.
And another impressive thing is that this takes place over one day, but the shoot was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, like the actual shoot.
8 weeks, I think. I think it was 8 weeks to shoot.
Yeah. So basically, they managed just the editing to make it look like it was a single day. Just in terms of the weather and lighting, that's an impressive feat there.
Yeah, it feels like it is too.
It does feel like it's the same day.
There's moments where you see people in different interactions walk out behind people that are having current interactions. They do a really good job of making it, like a single day affair.
Right.
Yeah, definitely like the same day instead of a long time. Kind of like if you guys ever watched the show 24. Everything happens in one day, but a lot happens in that one day.
Right. And then the, of course, we talked a little bit about the song, the "Fight the Power," which was a big
Fight the
jam in this
power.
one. The music overall was quite solid, I think. Bill Lee, Spike Lee's father, did the score, which was kind of minimal but nice when you heard it. And there was a lot of songs courtesy of our Senior Love Daddy that were a nice little soundtrack for all overall. But did anyone have any specific comments further on that, or?
Cinematography by Ernest Dickerson.
I don't know, man.
Oh, it was great. Yeah.
Ernest Dickerson did a great job.
Yeah.
It was all pretty fantastic for me,
All
being a fan of the music and the time.
Cool.
I think one of the moments, though, that it definitely shined was in like the Rosie Perez scene, where obviously, you know, the ice cubes and everything.
Yeah. And of course we had that scene at the beginning where she's dancing to fight the power, which was a very interesting
Yes.
intro.
Yeah, I like
What
that
me
dance.
and KJ
That dance
are
was really
both
cool.
fans of. It's
Right.
fucking magnificent.
Right.
It's kind of shot
Alright.
like a music video, but at the same time, like
Yeah.
interpretive dance. So it makes it
Right.
sort of like you don't know how to feel about it, and you just want to watch the entire thing.
Right.
And that's, I think, the aim of shit like that.
Right.
So,
I just want more of it.
All right. So let's go ahead and do then some favorites. I guess y'all can decide if you want to do character, scene, lines, what have you. We'll start with Dave.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to say that one of my favorites. There were many, to be honest, but like I enjoyed every scene with the mayor. Just because I love that kind of a character where he's just this old codger and you know he's acting the fool, but he's able to romance the old woman like in his own way. It's just a side story that I think is kind of romantic on the side that doesn't seem to get as talked about, or maybe. But as far as a favorite scene goes, I'm gonna have to say the scene where they actually like turn the fire hose onto the Italian's car. For some reason, just because of how pissed he got, and how the cops just kind of sided with him. That was just kind of funny. And I think there's a moment where Samuel Jackson just says, "What the fuck, dudes?" Or in the middle of his DJ stuff. That just kind of it made me wow. That's kind of like a strong, powerful scene, you know. So, but other than that, yeah, I love the ice cube scene. I think it's a very erotic scene for him. It was the only acting chops that I saw from Spike Lee in this film. So, I think when he was playing with love with her, I think he was best at, you know. I'm good. Next person.
Oh, wow. Yeah, next person. I just muted myself and didn't even realize it. Okay, that was silly. Yeah, KJ, how about your thoughts?
Great movie, but there's
favorites.
Favorite parts. I got two quotes I have to quote. The first one was by Pino. To quote Dave Chappelle, "There's some things that are so racist, it almost makes you laugh." I mean, really, it really does. Because when he tells him, "You gold teeth, gold chain wearing, fried chicken biscuit eat," I was like, damn, you really are racist, bro. Like, damn. I mean, but besides that, the other one was by Robin Harris's character. He was like, "It's never hot or never too cold. Fuck it." I was like, that is a true statement.
Nice.
Right. But no, those are my two favorite quotes for the movie.
And you mentioned something that we didn't mention, which is an interesting break in the film where they have Mookie Pino, one of the Puerto Rican youths, the Korean grocer, and I think it's Rick Aiello, the one cop,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
maybe
the
someone else who all do
slurs.
these, where they just look straight at the camera and
I mentioned it.
unload these rants.
Rand.
And
Yep.
then Sam Jackson comes in and then like, hold on, wait, everybody, and like just kind of zooms in on him, and he's like, what is going on here? But that
Yeah.
was an interesting break in the film that I found very awkward the first time I saw it. But
It's uncomfortable. It
it's
really
an
is
interesting,
Yeah.
yeah. How about you, Kroll? Your favorites?
I actually did mention that. You must have missed it when I said it, but that was my favorite comedic scene right there. I laughed my ass off, and this is the first time I
Okay.
watched it. I laughed at all of them, every single one of them. All the insults were fucking funny. That's the way I felt. I felt like everybody's insults were funny, But I've always found insults to be funny, even if they're directed at me, I don't care, It's just if they're funny, they're funny, But that's just the way how I feel about it. I don't take them seriously. In that situation, the way they were doing it like that, it's more of a funny thing than a serious thing, in my opinion. And my favorite regular scene, not comedic scene, is the ice. That was just super erotic and super fucking hot, and it wasn't anything X-rated. You get to see the moves, which you don't get to see much anymore. But it was definitely a great scene. And Rosie Perez is, like I said, new appreciation for her body. I mean, I knew she was good looking, but yeah, definitely was a fan of that. And yeah, my favorite character is definitely Mayor. I mean, normally a drunk would be probably my least favorite. I just don't like drunk people. I don't drink, and I hate it when people drink too much and they're complete assholes. But his character was great. I mean, his character wasn't that typical drunk at all. He was like the sagely grandfather or something. It just but to everybody. and no matter how much the woman scorned him and treated him like crap, he just took it with a grain of salt and just kept plugging at her, and bought her, took money that they must have saved up and bought her flowers, and said she didn't take them, but he still put it in front of her and talked about it and sat there. And he just kept he wouldn't take no for an answer, but he wasn't an asshole about it. He wasn't like forward about it. He was just really cool about it. He just kind of whittled her down slowly. So, of course, and hitting the scene where he saves the kid too is great. I mean, he's obviously old and he's usually drunk, and he flew across that street. Like I watched the scene, I was like, wow, he just flew across the street and grabbed the kid and rolled into it. It was a really awesome scene. I mean, I don't know if the actor did it or a stunt double, but yeah, they did a really great job with that scene. I really enjoyed it. So, and all the music I thought was pretty good too. Nothing that I hate or anything. So I enjoyed all the music and thought it fit the story.
Right.
And I love Samuel L. Jackson as a DJ. It was a great role for him.
All right. So, and then one last fun bit of trivia about the scene with the car is apparently the editor's an old friend of Spike Lee's who thought there was something wrong with that scene, and he actually showed up one day and said, you need to reshoot this scene. And it confused everyone on set going, what was this guy talking to the director like this? But they reshot the scene, and apparently Spike Lee was like, oh, yep, he was right. But I want to go ahead. Let's see. Brandon is next. What are your favorites on here?
Pretty much anything with Sam Jackson and the mayor. Any scene with them is fun. The two that stick out for me are there's the scene where they're talking out in front of the DJ's shop, and he's doing all these gestures, like he's taking his fingers, he's pointing down to his mouth, like my food. Just the subtleties in that, and the various layers that cracked me up. And then, of course, early on when Mookie's delivering a pizza, and the mayor Holtz is like, come over here. He's like, what you need? He's like, do the right thing. He's like, that's it? It's like, I love that because it drops the name of the movie. It's got more sagely advice than what you would think at the first part, but that initial reaction is like, what? That just got me every time.
And originally, Sal was going to repeat that line at the end, but I think it might be better without him doing that. But anyway, Kim, what are your favorites? Kim's favorites? Is she still there?
Oh, your favorites?
Huh?
Oh, your favorites?
Probably, I'm going to be honest, like probably the scene where he is pointing out to Pino that all his favorites are black people. And Pino's not even bothering to see the irony of that and trying to like Bill Clinton his way out of, no, but there are, no, it's the same thing. And I feel like that, like my whole thing with that is that Pino is one of those people that, loves to appropriate and appreciate black culture without actually liking black people. Like, Tales old time.
Yeah. All right. How about you, Mo? Favorites? You with us, Mo? Okay, I guess.
I feel like that's a position that's been taken by most people that have supported black culture. They just let it play it out and try to cash in while it's still worthwhile. Places I think that have been in the neighborhood since before that should probably be exempt from the type of scrutiny that neighborhoods that weren't there beforehand were.
All right. Mo, your favorites, scenes, characters, whatever?
Sure. My favorite characters are probably, I don't know if I have a favorite list. I think that I just wish people would work stuff out more in the way that they're aiming at the end of this movie rather than anything else. I don't really have anything to say, so on to the next one.
Oh, okay. Forrest, your favorites?
Okay, so favorites, I would say Radio Raheem's Story of Love and Hate. And this, I think the scene with all the where they're all saying all the racial slurs and stereotypes, that I found that very poignant. Also early on when they're playing with the fire, when the kids are in the street playing with the fire hydrant. Like I said earlier in the show, just because that's something that me and my cousin used to do when we were kids. So that's like it's a moment right there that took me back to my own childhood.
Nice.
All right, very cool. And as for me, I guess if I had a favorite character, it'd probably be Senior Love Daddy. I find that character quite amusing. And some of the others definitely had their moments. I mean, again, Sal took a dark turn at the end, but for the most part, throughout the film, he was a character I liked. And some of the others, the mayor is another one that I generally quite liked. And like I said, there were a few good moments. The scene at the end between Mook and Sal, that one line that Willie had about the being 30 cents from quarter. I just love that line. I do like the part where Mayer said "do the right thing." I just thought that was an interesting little moment. So there were a lot of good moments scattered throughout. Though it's hard to pick a clear. Oh, and the speech, Raheem's speech about the love and hate, that was definitely a good one. And speaking of speeches, one thing that I do think is worth mentioning is that the film ends with 2 excerpts. You get a really nice excerpt on nonviolence from Martin Luther King Jr., and then a complementary but almost opposite viewpoint from Malcolm X that are both very logical. And I agree more with King's quote, but they're both good, solid quotes. And I thought it was really interesting that Lee ended the film with both of them without comment. Almost like choose your own opinion, which, yeah, exactly. And I think some of the things we were saying earlier about a more modern film probably would have been a little more didactic in just only having one quote, and that's the one that you're obviously supposed to look at. You know what I mean? So I thought that was interesting. But anyway, we had covered a lot of ground here, and thank everyone for coming out. Do we want to go ahead? I guess we'll save outros for the end, except for whoever's dropping. Are we having anyone dropping after this one?
I gotta work tomorrow.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
Do you think we could actually move? I know this is supposed to be a double feature, but you're not going to get the right numbers for Ride with the Devil. Can we move that and make that the starter for next week, and then we can pair that with Mirai? I have a feeling Mirai will be a shorter conversation. And probably
unfortunately, yeah, I know Ride with the Devil is likely to be a long one, so yeah, we can do that. It give me a chance to watch the other commentary track before.
So we can actually do our regular outros.
Okay. So you're saying let's rewatch the movie again? Damn you, people!
If you wish to. But
I'll forget half the shit by that next week.
I think we could go ahead and do our outros. Then it is getting late.
But yeah, I agree.
So we'll go ahead and I guess start with we'll start with our guest KJ. Why don't you give us their outro?
Hey everybody, my name is KJ. I have my own group on Facebook called Timeless Classic Movies and Television, where we talk about all kinds of classic movies and TV shows, all the way from the beginning of TV all the way to the beginning of time for movies as well. We have about almost 2,000 members, so if you guys are ever interested, please stop by. Other than that, I'm just working and just trying to enjoy life. And thank everyone for having me on here.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. And how about you, Brandon?
SeptumSin is SeptumSin versus the world. We love physical media on the site. Apparently, we've been on a roll with me doing unboxings for the last couple of weeks because I forget what the first unboxing was, but then I did the last week I did the Evangelion Ultimate box set unboxing, which was pretty darn awesome. And this week, we are going to be unboxing the Ghostbusters Ultimate set, so that you guys can see that. Last week. Yeah, I saw your unboxing of that, so that was awesome as well. I love how it lights up at the bottom. It is so cool, and video cannot do it justice. Other than that, you need to check out a lot of our other cool stuff. We have a Bad Ben discussion that's going to be coming up at the end of the month, where hopefully we'll get Mo with us and Kim and a couple others. We're going to record, and then we'll have that. And, of course, there will be an Anhedenia project either this week or next week where I do a better discussion of Fleas Part 2. And we're still good ways for our anime discussion. So
Okay.
That was
All
it.
right. And Kim, did you want to do an outro?
My name's Kim. I have a YouTube channel called Kim Creates Stuff. I basically do a lot of journaling and art, creative journaling stuff. Occasionally, I do videos on movies or books, and I actually have a couple videos in the pipeline coming up where I will be discussing the Hellraiser trilogy because I already did a book discussion about Hellbound Heart last year. So now I'm going to do a discussion about the movies, but it's going to take me probably another month or so to get through all the other sequels. So it's going to be a while for that one. But because I haven't seen some of the sequels in a number of years. But yeah, that's pretty much my channel. Or you can find me on Instagram at bugsboom, BUGSBOOM.
All right. Very good. Forrest, you want to give us your little spiel?
Sure. My name's Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer and occasional actor in Long Island, New York. I've also been busy with my YouTube channel, Forrest B. Bennett, where I do movie pickups and trailer reactions. I've been busy with getting a little more productive with that lately. You can find me on Instagram under my username My Name Is Not Gump, where I do comic book pickups. And I'm also on another podcast called. I'm also on on another show called Unger the Radar, which is also on YouTube, where I do movie reviews. Where I join host Randy Unger for movie reviews and commentaries. And I'm on also another podcast called Nostalgia Time with Kid Champagne, where we discuss 80s and 90s pop culture. I've always got something going on in the pipeline.
All right, very good. And let's see here, Kroll. Kroll. Why don't you give me your spiel?
Okay, first I'd like to say my name is not Gump is funny as hell. I love that. I just laughed when you said that. I never heard you say that before, so that's a cool name. But I'm Ron, nickname Crow on here, which was given to me by our own Mo here, back about 10 years ago in a video game where I met him. My character's name was Kroller, and Crow was always the nickname of the character, and he just started calling me that. Even when we talked in voice and everywhere else, even not in the game. So it's kind of stuck, and I kind of liked it, so stuck with it. I don't have a YouTube channel. As a matter of fact, I didn't even like YouTube until recently. But I do love movies, and I love TV shows. I love coming on these podcasts and talk about the movies. I've always been a fan of watching a movie and talking about it. Usually I have to wait for someone else to see the same type of movie. It's usually just like new movies that I've done that with. This I love doing this because, like I said, I get a chance to watch the movie. It's all fresh. We all just watch at the same time, around the same time, and we talk about it. And I go on another show on Sunday as well and do the same thing. So it's really fun. I really enjoy it. And I don't work right now because I'm disabled and can't really work. Maybe work from home sometime. I might try that, but as of now, I don't.
Hey, can I do a quick shout out for Mo since we have lost him?
Go for it.
Because he runs a channel called Retro Cult Home Video, and he does some amazing stuff. He's had some cool discussions, but a lot of them are, of course, full moon related. But there's some amazing ones, like a Ghibli discussion. And we've got some upcoming projects I know that he's got going. That's going to be awesome. So if you love everything full moon, you like some video game talk, you like all these other things, you should check out the channel. He is quite good when he gets going.
All right, very good. And I guess I'll do a quick thing. I'll give it to Dave, and then I guess take it back to talk about next week. So I am the co-host on SeptumSin versus the World. My name's Jake. I am a movie fan, collector, and what have you here in Central Virginia, where I also got my hands full both with starting a new business and before long being full-time employed for yay. So there's going to be a lot on my plate coming up soon. Not as much of it viewing related as I would like, but still make some time to come hang out with these fine folks for our discussions, which we had quite an animated one tonight, so I think that's good. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Go ahead, like I said, go ahead, Dave. Give us your little bit.
Sure. My name is David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this long journey of how to do the right thing. And thank you, Jake, for bringing it up. It was one that I hadn't quite gotten around to watching. I have it within the collection because they came out with like a collection on DVD a while back with Mo Better Blues, Crooklyn, stuff like that. So glad I was actually able to see this one. I think this one is the second one that I've seen out of Spike Jonze stuff. I think
Spike Lee.
Better. Yeah, Spike
Jonze
Lee.
is a whole different director.
Yeah.
True. But still for the same caliber.
Yeah. And I have to admit, being John Malkovich was a contender for this, but it didn't make it.
But Inside Movies Galore is a podcast where we go on and talk about various films from various levels. And I think we love getting together, having something to do, and be able to fully discuss these films with their own thoughts and beliefs behind them. So definitely let us know down in the comments what you thought of our discussion and whether you're going to go out and see this film and get it done and watched, and tell us what your thoughts were. But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I go on about my own video thoughts and my own video pickups, which, god damn it, I'm going to do a pickup video soon. It's just I've got so much to cover. But definitely give both channels a watch and like, share, and subscribe. And I'm going to give it over back to you, Jake, I think, because you are going to be telling us what's coming up next week, right?
Yes, and if you were listening a few minutes ago, you heard our decision to unfortunately uncouple the dueling Lees. I thought it was really fun to have Spike Lee and Ang Lee on the same week, and I thought it was really fun to have a movie called Do the Right Thing along with a movie called Ride with the Devil. But yeah, we got 3 hours and everyone needs to go to bed. So unfortunately, that's how it happens sometimes. So next week we'll be tackling Ang Lee's 1999 underrated gem, Ride with the Devil. And initially we were planning, and this will now be the second viewing of the night, to do Mamoru Hosoda's Mirai no Mirai, which more or less literally translates Mirai of the Future, which is, or Mirai is the English title, which is a wonderful little family drama from one of the greatest directors in anime. So I guess we'll have an Asian theme next week, so that's kind of fun. But yeah, so join us next week. I look forward to talking about both of those, and hopefully we'll get some pretty solid participation once again.
Definitely. And so everyone say goodnight.
Hey, everyone.
Everyone, good night.
Night, Jim Bob.
All right.
Night, night.